Have your attention, please. I'd like to call the Tuesday, January 10th, 2012 Committee of 13 meeting to order. First thing on our agenda is public comments. We allow 30 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, 3 minutes per person. Is there anybody wishing to come forward and comment to this body? Okay, seeing none, we're going to Jay. Can we have a resolution?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules and all ordinances and resolutions be read by title only.
Second.
Okay, motion and second on the floor. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of this resolution, raise your hand. Yes, unanimous. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Dale King.
Here.
Frank Winscott.
Here.
Jay Harrison.
Here.
Tom Allen.
Here.
Kevin Harrison.
Here.
Herb Hawkins.
Here.
Joel Jones.
Here.
Shirley Sandlin.
Here.
Dan Douglas.
Here.
Michelle Blady.
Here.
Steve Curry.
Here.
Patrick Carr.
Here.
Kurt Moore.
Here.
13 present.
The first item on the agenda is a presentation by the Health Department by Mr. Bailey.
Yes. And I'd like to thank the court and the judge for allowing us some time tonight, and Janet for her help in helping me get some of this stuff together for y'all. And of course, Richard is going to help me out with the PowerPoint. But to economize time, I'll go through a lot of this information fairly quickly, but we just felt like it was a good time to kind of go over the basic things that the health department provides here locally and to residents of the area. And what I did was we have really two large programs over there that we administer. One is environmental, which is pretty atypical for Arkansas. We have a really, really large, what we call on-site sewage disposal program with the septic system programs. And we obviously have a large number of clinical programs, which is our immunizations, maternity, family planning. The first presentation that I'm going to go through covers our environmental health. And this PowerPoint was put together by our environmental health team. And they're all pretty young and they're all pretty sharp and they have an affinity for this stuff. And so they did a really good job. So I thought it would be appropriate to share this PowerPoint with y'all tonight. And in going through this, their food service inspections, right now they have about 960 food service establishments in Benton County that they're responsible to inspect. And those are broken down into high risk, medium risk, and low risk, depending upon the types of foods and the involvement of the foods, the preparation that they have to do in each of those facilities. So they're mandated, depending upon the category, to inspect them so many times a year. That includes the crafts fairs, which is the slide that's up right now. They'll go out to War Eagle, Bella Vista, the smaller crafts fairs, anywhere where there's food preparation going on, to make sure that foods are stored right, they're cooked properly, the temperatures are correct, that we're not having any possibility where someone could get a foodborne illness and become ill. The next slide, the food safety regulations. There again, they work off of the National Model Food Code that the state of Arkansas has adopted. And the next slide on the inspections, as I just mentioned, those people look for 5 risk factors: temperature, improper cooking techniques, dirty and contaminated utensils and equipment, poor employee health and hygiene, and then food from unsafe sources. Any foods that people use to prepare to serve to the public have to come from an approved source. The next slide there, the inspections, again, kind of hits on some of those same items. They'll go in and not only take temperatures, but they'll take time to really observe how those individuals are preparing the foods. Are they handling food and then going to the hair, going to a shirt or an apron? There's a lot of potential for cross-contamination when they're doing that, especially if they're going from raw foods to cooked foods. So there's a lot involved when they go in and observe operations of a food service facility. In the slide there again that Richard's got up on the inspection, I started out with the department back in the 70s doing inspections, and that was a time when it was relatively new for someone to come into your kitchen and really observe and tell you or recommend to you, what to do. And so you weren't looked on very favorably. And I saw a lot of things that I could not believe. And you think that those times are gone, but as some of these slides will show, a little bit of it still remains, like the drying meat on the roof. You've got an example there of moldy salsa. The next slide up, you've got some, the pictures speak for themselves. And I spent a couple of terms on the State Board of Health, and we did have an example of a food service facility come before us in the early 80s that pretty much that first slide under general filth was pretty indicative of that whole operation. And that board can make a recommendation for closure if you've done your homework right, you've documented it in that operator, that owner has had every opportunity possible to correct those problems and still hasn't done it, then you have an obligation to protect the public and pursue the Administrative Procedures Act and see if there can be closure to that establishment. There's some other examples there. The next slide, too, one of the things that environmental has a responsibility over or has a part in playing is with illegal prescription drugs or dated drugs. A lot of times they'll come out and someone has obtained certain over-the-counter drugs that are out of date. And one of the responsibilities they have is to quarantine those and make sure that those are disposed of in a proper manner. And in that slide, that Star Leva used to be Star Glenn until just a few months ago, but she is also on the planning board, but she's one of the environmental health specialists. Then the program folks have put why we do what we do, and I will say that there's 6 of them over there right now, 6 environmental health specialists, and they're extremely committed to their job responsibilities. And the on-site wastewater, which is the other major program that they've got responsibility for over and above the food, are the septic systems. And in Benton County, the septic system regulations were passed in 1977, and a lot of that impetus for putting that legislation together and seeing it through that legislative process and seeing it become law was due in large part to a lot of people in Benton County. My predecessor, some of the legislators here at that time, really, I think, were forward-thinking and knew what was coming down the pike: the growth, Beaver Lake, protection of the groundwater. All of that came into play. And I say that to say that since that time, Benton County has issued more on-site sewage disposal system permits than any other county in the state, typically by far, every year since '77, since that became law. Some of the things that they're required to do if someone's wanting to, if public sewer is not available and they're going to put in a septic system, there are people that are licensed to do soil work, soil analysis for you. You would engage one of those people to come out to your property, and they will basically dig about a 4-foot soil pit, which is shown in this slide, and they'll use the training that they've received and been certified in to see if that site's going to be able to have a septic system put on it, and then they will use some certain criteria and design that. This shows Star in one of those soil pits, because we also have to go behind these people and make sure that what they've recorded and what they've reported to our office, we're seeing the same thing, and we're both on the same page as far as that site is concerned. The next slide there, I've got complaint investigations, but They also have to follow up in final construction. This basically shows the system, a portion of the system that's been installed. This particular slide here shows a pump system, which is basically utilized if you're having to put a system in at a different elevation than where it comes out of the house. It's not a typical system that we see. But they have to go out, one of our people has to go out, and when it's uncovered before the licensed installer covers it up, that installer puts that system in as it's been designed by that licensed person in private business. That installer is not to deviate from that design. If there is a reason why, they have to contact our office, and we make sure that we're on the same page and agree that it needs to be deviated from. But that installer gets it installed. We go out on the site and make an inspection before it's covered up, and we just make sure that the workmanship's correct, the materials that's been used are appropriate. No one's slacking anybody on cheap materials or inappropriate depth of gravel and things like that. And if everything looks good, our people sign that final part of that document, which is the permit for operation, and it goes on file at our office. The people are also go out on complaints and malfunctioning septic system. We work a lot with Joyce Higgins and the other folks over at Environmental Health and with the county, and make sure that people are informed of what they need to do to correct the problem, and that they follow through and get that corrected. Then the next item, the slide that Richard's got up now, just some there again, the pictures pretty much speak for themselves. People can get pretty creative with how they try to handle their sewage, and you can see they built a trough there to try to take it out from their mobile home. Pumper inspections, we inspect the septic tank pumpers and license them, so we know that they have a proper facility to pump out and carry the waste and also dispose of the waste. They provide us a contract showing where they're disposing of their pumpings. Swimming pools is another big thing in Benton County that they're responsible for. They make sure the chemistry is correct with the pool water, and also the safety features are all in place, and that everything's being done correctly. There's an example of a pool that they put in there that probably looked better. And unfortunately, from time to time, and thankfully not in this part of the state necessarily, but there, I think it was 2 years ago, y'all might have seen in the central part of the state where there was an individual that had drowned in a pool, and the clarity of the water was so poor that they didn't even know that the person was down there. Then other shared responsibilities, there's about 7 or 8 items there that they're also responsible for, rabies control and water well sampling results. If you've got a private well and you have an unsafe water sample, bacteriologically unsafe, that we can help you, walk you through that and advise you some things you can do to treat that water. They're on call 24/7. There's some examples of truck wrecks that they're required to respond to. They make sure that items that are damaged or somehow contaminated don't find their way back into the food chain. So they quarantine those products, and we have to work real close with law enforcement to make sure that those products remain secure until we visually either release them into the custody of another health department. Say if they're going back to Missouri to a place up there, we tag the trailer, and the only people that can break that tag is someone that we approve, which is usually law enforcement, USDA, or another health department. And then these last few slides are basically public outreach. There again, our environmental health team does a really good job of that. And there again, I can't say enough about them. They give Benton County what it deserves, and that's the best environmental health team I think that exists right now in the state of Arkansas. The next PowerPoint presentation kind of gets over on the clinical side, and I'll move through this pretty quickly and just try to give you an overview of what we do on the clinical side. And this presentation, really the core of this presentation was put together by a lady that was working on her doctorate in public health from the University of Kentucky, and she did this for us, and we thought it was really nice, and so we incorporated a lot of it. And it just starts out with some stating the obvious to a lot of this that have been up here for a while. It just reflects our 2010 population, and that last 10 years we grew at 44.3%. I think when I first got up here in 1980, we were 70-something thousand people, and I failed to mention the 4 people on the front of this. That's our departmental operations team, and that represents our clerical, nursing, and administrative. But between us, we've got about 115 years of public health experience. But one of the great things about that is that we've been able to see what it takes to meet the needs of the public when you are, a county of 70,000 and 100,000 and 130,000 and 150,000 and 175 and 200. And if you'll, as we move to the next slide or two, you'll see that she also had in here the projected population, which I don't know if we will really see that or not, but it's got Benton County is continuing to grow and grow and grow. The mission statement is promoting the public health policies and practices to assure the healthy quality of life by Arkansans. Then we move right into those clinical services. We do immunizations. WIC is Women, Infants, and Children's Program, which is a federal program that the states administer. Family planning, maternity, breast and cervical cancer control program, tuberculosis, STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, and communicable disease. With immunizations, we did 6,800 immunizations in the clinics. We have a clinic in Rogers and one in Silent Springs. In the 2,500 flu vaccinations, so 9,300 total vaccinations were provided to residents in 2010. And also, one of the things we've done the last few years, especially after 9/11, is we've exercised our mass dispensing plan, and we've done that by providing flu vaccinations. And there for a couple of years we did drive-thrus, and in 2007, which this particular slide depicts, we provided 2,200 flu vaccinations. We worked really closely with at that time, Marshall was over at the Office of Emergency Management. We worked close with Marshall and his group, and it really, really went well with the drive-through clinic. And there again, we were able to provide 2,200 flu vaccinations to the public. And then in 2008, we did the same thing. And we also added a clinic in Silent Springs. We did 1,800 over here. The Silent Springs clinic was a set clinic at one of the churches over there. So it was not a drive-through. The last 2 years we've done clinics continued in Silent Springs at a church facility there, and then the last 2 years we used the Rogers Activity Center, which has really worked well. We can get people in and out of the weather if they need to, and we did approximately 1,000 provided 1,000 flu vaccinations to each one of those this last year. Our Women, Infants, and Children's Program, which is WIC for short, is for pregnant, breastfeeding, postpartum women, and then infants and children up through the age of 5. It's a supplemental nutrition program, and there again, it's a federal program administered by the states. The item there, the payments to WIC vendors, they're issued what's called a check. If they qualify income-wise and risk assessment-wise, they can get a check for a particular food item to be redeemed at an authorized store. And you've probably seen on a grocery store going in or a food store going in, WIC approved or WIC accepted here. In the federal fiscal year, January through September, that probably needs to read October through September, there were 3,888,000 of those checks, that money that ran through Benton County. And then the next slide talks a little bit more about WIC. Then we move to the family planning program, which has historically, traditionally always been in high demand, still is. We provided 2,108 family planning service visits, or recorded family service visits in 2010. Maternity program, which is another program in heavy demand. We had 1,181 patient visits in 2010. Our VCCP's program, that program receives funding from CDC, so a lot of times, depending upon, how that's flowing, we may have to ratchet down. We're only given a certain number of appointments for that program, and it's in tremendous demand. And so we may have 20 appointment slots that we can give. Those go like that. And then we may get word that, hold off for a while, you don't have any. But the bottom line with that is there's a lot of people that try to access that program continually. And in calendar year 2010, we had 122 patients that we were able to access that program. Our tuberculosis clinic, we had in 2010 1,507 patient visits and TB skin tests. We provided about 8,700 TB skin tests. STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, we had about 1,100 patient visits in 2010. And there again, all these pictures, it's staff there from the local health department. The other services, we do need interpreter services, and so we were able to contract different programs, provide monies to pay those contract interpreters. Example being the immunization program, the WIC program. They all put X amount of money into a pool, and that money goes to pay contract interpreters. And then vital records and environmental health, which we covered earlier. But in vital records, we provide the home birth certificates, death certificates, and stillbirth. And then community partnerships, Benton County government. We've always been very blessed to have a great relationship with Benton County for through a lot of these different gentlemen right over here on this wall. And the county provides the facility and maintains it. They support the health department with maintenance and operations budget. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we partner a lot with county offices. We've done some really neat things with Elizabeth and GIS in the past. Examples have been food service inspections, you can access those on the county website, health department piece of the county website. The only county in the state right now that you can do that with. We've also been able, and it's an unbelievable accomplishment, but we had, I don't know how many, Elizabeth, 20-something thousand, well over 20,000 on-site septic system designs and documents that have been scanned in. And I don't know of anybody else in the state, much less this region of the country, that's ever done anything like that. So our hope is that we can continue to develop that and be able to utilize that information for a lot of different things. And also we have a really good relationship with Benton County Environmental and Joyce Higgins and the others over there. We get back to some of the things that we'd already gone over there with environmental. I did want to talk or just make one comment too that kind of rides on the coattails of the flu vaccinations I mentioned earlier. For the last about 3 years, one of the things that with the governor's cigarette tax increase that happened a few years ago, a portion of those monies went to help the Department of Ed and the Health Department collaborate to go into schools that wanted to do this, to go into schools and provide flu vaccinations to the kids. And so every school district in Benton County has opted to participate. We've also got some charter schools and some private schools that have opted to participate. So what we do is we coordinate with school administration and the school nurses, and the NWAC School of Nursing has been a unbelievably valuable help in helping us pull this off. But we utilize them too, and we go into all of these schools and we provide the vaccinations to those kids there. And I'll have to say, it's really, really a big task. We start in October and we end, the first year we ended in middle of December. I think this year we ended early December. But it's a good month and a half of work. And so it's a great team effort. And in 2011, we provided almost 7,600 flu vaccinations in the schools in Benton County. Parents loved it because, that they don't have to take time off from work or take the kids in, and the kids seem to like it, that they're with the peer group and get that support, and the teachers like it. And the data has shown that there's been lots less missed days at school because of that too. And the last couple of things that I will mention on community partnerships are those last three slides there. One is GAP there, Richard. But one of the things that the health department really has done for the last 20 plus years is partner with different people in the community and try to get assistance and try to address some of these health-related issues when you might not have all the resources to do it. Somebody else might want to help you out. But the GAP community is the Gaps in Services community, and really that group has started out looking at some of the needs of some of the minority groups in the area and what can be done to assist them. That focus is, in the last few years, has tended to trend to the Marshallese community. So it doesn't directly impact as much with Benton County. That large population of that group is around Springdale. The drug-free Rogers Lowell, that's a group that has received some tobacco funding over the last many years. Well, that's a great group. Megan Cuddy, her office is there at the Rogers Chamber, and they've done some really great things, not only with tobacco prevention, but underage drinking and things like that to address those issues. Benton County Community Coalition's been around for probably 25 plus years. They tend to meet once a month, and a lot of agencies and nonprofits are part of that group. And really it serves as a forum for people to talk about health-related issues in Benton County and try to, again, identify resources to address those issues. Bridges to Wellness in Siloam Springs is a really unique group. They're a 501c3. They're in the second 3-year roll of a HRSA grant. Their vision is Siloam Springs is going to be the America's Wellness Capital. And I think that they're going to be serving as a role model, I think, to a lot of communities on what they can do to, as a community, to better the overall health of the community. So build a culture of good health in that community. So with that said, I know that was pretty quick, but I know y'all's time is valuable too. So if there's any questions that I can help y'all with, or if y'all would like to come out to the union and tour it, I know we're just a little bit over a year being over at the former St. Mary's Hospital. So if y'all would like to come over, we'd love to have you. Let you meet some of the staff over there, see our layout, become more familiar maybe with what we do, some of the challenges we've got. But I will say this to y'all, and you have really got a good group of professionals over there at the Benton County Health Department, and they have typically stayed there for quite a while. Sometimes in state government, you get a lot of moving. They'll be with you for 2 or 3 years, and then they move on, which is all good if that's what they want to do. But you've got some people that have stayed on. And the reason they stayed on is because they buy into public health, and because you're not there because of the salary, and you're not there because of easy hours or necessarily just humdrum, every day to day. But they have a lot of challenges, and they go after them without any prompting, and I think they would make you proud. So, with that said, there again, come see us.
Thank you, Lloyd. Yes, Lloyd, would you take some questions?
You're not going to get off that easy. From a resident standpoint, what is the biggest and single most health situation that you see here in Benton County?
Well, that's a good question, because there's in public health, you're really, like we just went over, you look at everything. And I'm not so sure that you could really put your finger on any one thing. But I will say that, the thing that if you look to the future, the community partnering, bridges to wellness, and I look back to a lot of the things Dr. Bozeman did when he was director of the health department. He had what he thought was he had a perfect storm presentation PowerPoint. And basically, it was tobacco use, it was lack of physical activity, it was poor nutrition, and he took those three elements to create the perfect storm. And the perfect storm being that it leads to health issues, and it also, those health issues also lead to a burden on an economic burden. And so it's a train that just continues to gain momentum, and how do you interdict that? And his thought and his philosophy was, well, you educate people as to what they can do to address one or two or all three of those particular items, and what you can do as a community. And if you can stop that or lessen that momentum, then ideally that's going to have you're going to have a higher quality of health, personal and as a community, and it's not going to be such an economic burden. Because I think we all know what the budgets looks like, and one of the things he always drew on was when he was a state senator, what the Medicaid budget was then, and then when he was director of the health department, how long has he been gone? Maybe 10 years later, how much that Medicaid budget had grown. So, and we all know what health costs, what that, what the history has been with that. So, I would think that it's probably not one of those things you can necessarily put your finger on, like TB or STDs or something like that. But as far as a community and something down the road, I think that's probably something that we don't put enough focus on. You hear a lot of, you hear about people don't smoke, you exercise, and you eat well, and all of that. But what is being done, uniformly to address that? And that's why I think Bridges to Wellness is such a great model. They've gone out and from nothing. Business brought that group together. Usually you're trying to get business to come into a group like that. But, HR director over there said, I'm tired of shopping around for insurance for our employees. And I'm tired of trying to get into the ER because it's so inundated all the time. And I know that's a national problem, it's a state problem, but what can we do as a community to address it? And that's what started that group. So you've got some of the big businesses over on that side of the county that's been, they've been a real, and continue to be a real important part of that group over there. So.
The county has made a healthy investment in the health department, about $2.5 million in facilities, new facilities for you. Well, they're not new, but they are seriously remodeled. What is the biggest advantage that has afforded the health department as opposed to the old situation?
I think it's made the work area a little more efficient, because the going into that old labor and delivery area over there, the rooms are larger. You can, if you have your relative with you or your kids with you, you're not all, in there like this. You can. There are convenience to the client, especially on the women's health hallway. We have the restrooms that are in each of those rooms. When we've done away with the showers in most of them, we plug those up, but we kept the stools operational. So I think that's been a big benefit with clients with that particular program. So I think the efficiency of the exam area has probably been the biggest plus over there. There are a lot of other offices in that same complex, but they tend to draw, their particular, clientele. But that's probably been the biggest business efficiency, I guess, of moving over there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Bailey? Yes,
Lloyd, the county health department services, are they limited to the unincorporated areas, or do they extend into the city and the municipalities?
Everybody. The only limitations that we would have would be for the WIC program. And if you were living in Oklahoma, like in our Siloam clinic, if you came in from Oklahoma and were trying to access WIC, you couldn't. That's a federal requirement. But other than that, different programs have different income qualifiers, but whether you live in Rogers or you live outside of LaRue or wherever, you're okay.
yes, Mr. Allen.
When we were talking about moving you to the building you're in now, there was a lot of discussion about whether or not it was going to be convenient for your customers, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
What have you experienced since you've been over there? What's been the feedback? What you've been hearing?
Well, we always hear positive, and we make sure that we have a customer survey that we always hand out, for people to make comments on and whatnot. So it's all positive. Our caseloads have, with rare exception, have not fluctuated a lot. And the reason in those cases where they have fluctuated, it's basically been, something involved with that particular program, whether it be like BCCCP I mentioned a while ago. It may just be, well, we're having budget-wise throttle back. You're not going to have that many appointment slots for a while. Or we lost a nursing position it's been about a year and a half ago. So we don't have the staff that we had, at one time. But by and large, I think, our balance has stayed pretty much the same as far as caseload.
Well, but has anybody complained to you about this is a real inconvenient location compared to where you were, or this is really nice?
People don't complain with our services, as a rule, because they are so appreciative of what we do. I mean, our clientele, and we don't exclusively serve, low income or only Medicaid. I mean, we see pretty much everybody with our immunization program, and anybody can come in and access that and things like that. There again, when people come in our doors, they're usually, grateful that they're going to be able to get a service.
And I don't mean to belabor this, but has there been a benefit? These are random questions, but they've all come before this court before. Has there been anybody to your clinic that you know of that used for example, the Ozark Regional Transit? Because now I believe that's a stop for them. It's a regular
stop. It is a stop, yeah. And I'm not familiar with how many people that have ridden on that have ridden it exclusively to come to the health department. I'm not aware of that figure.
Yeah, I know that it's not something you track. I didn't know if you were aware of it.
Yeah.
The last thing is, I know we have the HIV clinic in Washington County that we've partnered with. do you have anybody coming to your clinic not knowing that clinic exists, and that you can't serve them, that you have to refer to that?
Not that I'm aware of. One of our nurses is on that board too. One of our women's health nurses. So that's worked out really good. But no, I think that in that particular case, there are several public health investigators that work out of, I don't think they're called that anymore, but I still call them that work out of Fayetteville, and they come up and work our area. But the knowledge of that HIV clinic, its existence, and its location is out there.
Okay.
I think people know.
Yeah, Chairman Harrison.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but you might be able to. How does our facilities compare to most of the counties around the state?
It's been a while since I've been to other parts of the state. The ones I can think of, would be of any population, comparison would be Washington County and Sebastian. Sebastian's, they just had a remodel. I'm not so sure how much additional square footage they might have required, but now their population hasn't really, taken off like ours either. Washington County had they built theirs in they had their grand opening in the late 90s. Their square footage probably would be somewhat comparable. Their layout is completely different. I'm just trying to think of the larger counties and what they've done with facilities. I would say that, though, by and large, for those larger counties, we've got a good situation. You've got 75 counties in Arkansas, and probably, 5 have any semblance of a situation like we've had with population growth and in client volume. Of those 5, I know 3 of the 5, that being Sebastian, Washington, and Benton. I think we've got good solid platforms, good facilities to address the needs right now. I don't know if I really answered that or not, but I'm just not that familiar with them like I used to be.
Okay.
Anybody else wish to ask Mr. Bailey any questions? If not, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very much.
Very good presentation. Next on the agenda is a discussion of the Benton County Farm Bureau resolution opposing Bella Vista annexation of Hiwasse. Dan, would you, is Mr. Simpson going to come up and speak?
Yes, I thank James
Okay.
Simpson, who is the Legislative Affairs Chairman of Benton County Farm Bureau. He's got some information he wants to address for the court.
Good evening. My name is James Simpson. I'm the chairman of the Legislative Committee for Benton County Farm Bureau. And one of the things I always try to do before I talk on behalf of the Farm Bureau is make sure that everyone understands that we're not an insurance company. We have an insurance company as a member benefit, but our primary objective is to advocate the interests of agriculture in local, state, and federal government, promote agriculture, and provide services to members. So that's a snapshot. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Benton County Farm Bureau to join our farmers, members, and friends in Hiwasse to express our opposition to the proposed annexation of the Hiwasse community into the city of Bella Vista. This annexation will have a negative impact on agriculture and the daily lives of the people in the Hiwasse area. And this is a huge step. We're talking almost 6,000 acres of agricultural land in Hiwasse. Everyone who's currently farming in Hiwasse would receive an exemption. But if farming is discontinued for over 12 months in that area, then they lose the exemption. In the volatile market of today and unpredictable weather, a farmer could inadvertently or intentionally not produce a crop or have any livestock for a period of 12 months very easily. This happens routinely. If that were the case, farming could not be resumed in that area. Home occupations would be basically non-existent under the annexation. You cannot have a separate structure for your home occupation. You can only increase traffic by one car at a time. You cannot have an employee, and you can only use 25% of your home for your home occupation. For example, you couldn't operate a functioning beauty salon or a daycare unit out of your home. I think there's currently examples of both in the Hiwasse area, or multiples. You cannot have a manufactured home on your property in the area, even if it's owned agricultural use. And manufactured housing is commonplace in agricultural areas, both for operators and for employees. The permitting process would be much more restrictive and expensive for farmers and landowners. Under current county code, agriculture uses are exempt from permitting. Under Bella Vista City Code, all forms of construction would be required to get a permit. With these permits, you would have to have certified plans by an architect or engineer, and which would be an additional cost to the landowner that isn't necessary for most agricultural structures. Benton County Farm Bureau is also concerned with the city's lack of ability to provide the necessary services to comply with current annexation laws. In their own ordinance, they say they will provide, number one, code enforcement, sanitation service, street maintenance, police protection, and fire protection. Bella Vista currently does not have a street department. My understanding is they don't even own a road grader. They're lacking in critical fire protection services, and I think a very good example of that was the fatal fire in mid-December that they had ended up having to bring in tanker trucks, and ironically one of those tanker trucks was from the Hiwasse Volunteer Fire Department, which, by the way, would be shut down almost immediately following annexation. A recent 4029 news story highlighted that issue with the dry hydrants, and supposedly that area, the woman that lives in that area, discovered that the fire hydrant next to her residence had not been inspected in 12 years. This is just a few of the many concerns that Benton County Farm Bureau has with the proposed annexation ordinance. There are many more examples like this as to why we oppose this. And that's why we're here this evening. That's why we ask that you support our opposition and express this to the city of Bella Vista. Of course, one of the things also is the impact that it would have on county revenues. I also received today, because we have been in contact with our state office and personnel there, getting guidance on this, and I think everyone has got a copy of this letter that was received, and I'd just like to go ahead and just read that. Dear members of the Court, I'm writing on behalf of the Arkansas Farm Bureau Federation to express our opposition to the city of Bella Vista and their proposed annexation of the Hiwasse community. We would encourage the Benton County Court to take the same opposition and express these same concerns to the city of Bella Vista. Arkansas Farm Bureau is a grassroots organization with over 215,000 members in the state of Arkansas. We currently represent over 8,000 members in Benton County and over 100 families in the community of Hiwasse. Our mission is to advocate the interest of agriculture and to work to improve the quality of life for our members. At the request of our membership, we have reviewed the proposed annexation. If passed, the new regulations passed in this small agricultural community by the city would be detrimental and quite possibly devastating to their ability to maintain or expand their current farm, while potentially decreasing the value of their land. Landowners and farmers will also be faced with additional costs to improve their land because of a more restrictive and expensive permitting process. Arkansas Farm Bureau has adopted a policy that clearly defines views on private property rights and restrictive annexation laws. This proposed ordinance does not comply with Arkansas Farm Bureau policy. Therefore, we adamantly oppose the annexation of the Hiwasse community into the city of Bella Vista. And signed sincerely, Bo Bishop, Coordinator of Local Affairs and Rural Development. That's all I have.
Do any members have any questions for Mr. Simpson? Yes, Kevin Harrison.
Well, and this may be better addressed by George, but is there really anything we can do other than just say we're against this? I mean, if they can't provide, is there anything that the court could do to prevent this from going through, especially since Bella Vista don't have the adequate services and stuff to provide if they truly can't provide and meet the requirements under state law as far as services that they would have to provide?
Well, if they can't meet the requirements under state law, that's between the residents of that area and Bella Vista. As to whether or not we can do anything as a quorum court, as a county, to prevent it, other than say, no, we don't think it's a good idea, which is what a resolution does. It expresses the opinion of the court on that particular day. No, there's nothing else we can do.
Mr. Allen?
That's what I had thought as well, but I'll tell you, Mr. Simpson, that I'm in full support of your position in the Farm Bureau as a member of the Quorum Court and as a citizen of the county. I don't know what I can do individually or as a member of the court, but I'd be in support if we wanted to draft a resolution. I don't think it does anything, but I'd be in support of it. One thing that I would like to see, and I don't know if we put this on the I missed the last legislative meeting, but I don't know if we've talked about the process that the state has currently for annexations. Right now it's pretty one-sided in that the only people that get to vote for this are the people in the affected area and then the people in the municipality that's annexing the land. Well, obviously there's 20-something thousand people live in Bella Vista. I don't know how many registered voters there are, but whatever that amount is. Generally speaking, those people usually are pro-growth and they will choose to land grab, and then you're stacked up against a few hundred people in the actual affected community. I don't think that's a fair way of going about annexing land. So I don't know if that's something we can bring up as a committee. Mr. Douglas, you're chairman of that committee, and whether we can talk to some legislators, and I know that's probably another uphill battle that we would be initiating from Benton County. But and I know I have actually been on the other side of the fence. I've actually been a part of the city that's annexing, and sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't. And I think you talked about the fact that if you can provide the services, if you can provide something that is of benefit to the people in that area, and that they do desire it, or at least there's some people that desire it, then I think it's probably a good thing to do. But when the people out there, and definitely the majority, don't want this to happen, it's a shame that the process is what it is.
Especially 6,000 acres.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really the Quorum Court and Farm Bureau really that we can do is just, I mean, we're already, Bella Vista will be at the third reading of this ordinance this month. And it's kind of flown under the radar up until very recently. And it's just to ring the bell and to try to get some facts out there. And I think the concern for the citizens of Bella Vista would be the fact that they would be talking about diluting the already strange services that they have in their community. That I think would be a good argument for the people of Bella Vista not to be in favor of this, because they obviously are strained as far as the street department, which they have none, fire protection. I don't know what the status of the police department is, but from the outside looking in, it looks like their current slate of services is already fairly strained without taking on another community.
Mr. Jones, and then Mr.
I'd like to say, as a citizen of Bella Vista, and that's a large part of my constituency, I don't agree with doing this annexation at this time, and I wholeheartedly agree that we should draft a resolution saying that this is as James.
Yes.
What was his last name?
Simpson.
As Mr. Simpson pointed out, Bella Vista is already strained as it is as a city to provide the services that we need, and it's a constant uphill battle with the POA and to do all those things. And so going out and taking 6,000 acres of basically farmland into a city that isn't it's a completely different type of city than what we'd be annexing. I'm for drafting or putting forth a resolution in this meeting so that we can take it to the city council meeting basically 2 weeks from today. It's on Monday, the fourth Monday this month. So it wouldn't be coming from the quorum court, but I'd like at least to see a resolution come from the Committee of 13. So we could, I'll go there and take it. Anybody else who wants to come can stand up and say the same thing. So
Is that a motion?
make it so.
What is the motion?
That we put forth a resolution disagreeing with the annexation of Hiwasse by Bella Vista.
Second.
Okay.
Well, I want to clarify this because we're not going to get it to the court in time. So, and a resolution generally contemplates something in writing, which we don't have. I think it might be more appropriate for you to just make a motion that the court, and I don't know what the vote will be, but that the court show its opposition to that, and instead of doing it in any kind of written form, which we don't have. And I see Mr. Sissom there, so I'm sure that it will show up appropriately in local. So that basically is what you mean?
Yes, I would like it to come from the Committee of 13 because we won't have our. I don't think that's going to happen, but our voice as a committee for that purpose. So, who got the second on that?
Mr. Douglas?
Okay, well, I agree with Mr. Jones there that we need to at least have a voice resolution, maybe not written tonight since we don't have it already. But James, is there a sign there or a map? Could you hold up a map so that everybody can be aware here? That is a map. Green, Bella Vista. Pink is the proposed annexation area of Hiwasse. Farm Bureaus came out to opposition to this annexation. Everybody see that? Understand where we're coming?
Yeah.
All right. That's fine, John. Because not only does it affect agriculture, but it affects the property values of the individuals there too. On an agriculture operation, if you can't expand, lots of times you can't stay efficient, and the willingness of lenders to finance agricultural operations in an area where it's restricted could become a substantial problem there too. Also, fire service. The Hiwasse Fire Department, Volunteer Fire Department, services a large area. Their service area expands further out than just that pink area. If this area is incorporated, they'll cease to exist because they can't support themselves on the limited area around it. But then Centerton will have to expand their fire service area. Gravette will have to expand theirs, Benton, to pick up this area that is being left by the demise of the Hiwasse Fire Department. That affects county residents that were their voice. Their fire ratings could change a lot because they're further away from fire stations and their insurance rates go up. I mean, no matter how you look at the county roads. Of course, we get plenty of complaints about the maintenance of county roads. I know the judge hears a few from time to time. But, my gosh, at least we're equipped to do it. We've got people out in the county that depend on county government to stand up for them. And we're their only voice. And I feel like that they, by being incorporated, or this is all up to call a hostile takeover, is not fair to them. And I support Mr. Jones' resolution here to voice our opposition to this. Thank you.
Mr. Allen, did you have your hand up earlier?
I did. I was going to suggest a letter, but I guess we still have to draft it and sign it, and we're here tonight and not even tonight, so I'm not going to go down that road. I don't think that's practical either.
Mr. Woodstock?
Yes, I'd like to address this to our county attorney. What is the process? Does it just take Bella Vista's council to vote to annex, or does it have to be approved by the state, or does it have to go before the citizens of Bella Vista?
There are multiple methods to do annexations. This particular method is annexation basically by election. What they do is they call an election for the area in question, and then an election is held, and the election includes both the voters from Bella Vista and the voters from the affected area. So what they do in the ordinance process is they establish what the area is that they're proposing the annexation be and set the election.
And it doesn't require any state approval?
No.
It's already got the statute set up.
Well, yeah. This is all statutory. It's not something they're just making up.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
Judge Kleiner?
Can I make a comment?
Please.
James, Mr. Simpson specifically aimed his comments at the Hiwasse annexation. I'm asking that you also voice your opinion again about that section, of which I'm not in favor of. The blue, I think, is good for the city of Bella Vista and the county, because these are pockets of county property that, for all intents and purposes, we would have fire protection and we would have police protection, sheriff protection in some of those little pockets. I think that part is good. So I would ask that you consider opposing area 1 and 2, 2 and 3, and saying that you're okay with 1. Well, I just want to make sure everybody's got all the correct
Can you explain what
information.
2 is?
It's dark.
And this is 3 different items on the ballot. What's that?
What exactly is area 2?
This is the Walgreens, the area northeast and northwest of the intersection of Highway 71 Business and Benton County 40. It goes up and takes part of that old Bella Vista where those older houses are, takes in the Walgreens, the Krylike, and
They call it a corner.
that's right. I just want to be sure we got all the facts.
Mr. Carr?
Well, actually, Ms. Blady was...
Oh, was she? I'm sorry.
Then I'll have some questions.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I just wanted to say that as a citizen of Bella Vista and the JP for Hiwasse, I'm adamantly opposed to the annexation of it. And just as a side note, I've been in Bella Vista for 5 years, and my road has never been touched. And I don't want to see that happen to the citizens of Hiwasse.
Mr. Carr?
I guess I have a couple of questions. I want to know what the financial impact of us as Benton County is first. Have we had any studies? Richard, do you know anything, Judge? What's our financial impact going to be if we lose this? I knew somebody would have
Leave it clear.
talk dollars to me.
That's
Then I have a follow-up.
That's what Bella Vista says, that they'll be gaining in sales tax and property taxes.
So this area, $33,000 in 2012 in city sales tax would move to Bella Vista.
The lower part of it.
Okay. Reallocated funds. State turnback, $21,000. County sales tax, $51,000. Total reallocated taxes, $73,000. Total new revenue to Bella Vista in 2012 of almost $50,000. 2013, big jump.
Now, Ron, this is Mr. Farner's estimations, and according to his word, and I quote, these are random numbers.
Does he work with the water department by any chance? Out of curiosity, is he with
He's
Oklahoma?
at Bella Vista City Council.
Well, that's fantastic. I guess my follow-up is, not wanting to demean anyone in this situation, but I'm probably going to go down that direction. It seems like this is a land grab, and I wonder what can we do to assist Hiwasse in some type of class action suit to try to block this. We know that there's ways to block eminent domain in this day and age, and of course our attorney's shaking his head back there. I'm just not buying that. These are our citizens, and I think we have a right for our voice to be heard. This is our tax dollars. I frankly don't care what the state government thinks in this situation. Don't frankly care what Bella Vista thinks. But I think if we're not willing to stand up for our own citizens, why do we exist? We're not just a tax entity. We're also a professional citizen. So what can we do to stop this? Other than all of us going there and looking out there going, you guys are doing bad things, what do we do?
I see a hand madly waving back there. Would you like to recognize?
First of all, my name is Bill Williams. I know that some of you are used to me coming here to ask for money. I'll do that one more time. As individuals who are concerned, you're welcome to make any contributions you want to the Bank of Credit, to the Hiwasse Community Association. It will be accepted with respect and gratitude. I would expect, and I think there's every likelihood that the Community Association would expect, that at some point, if this goes too far down the road, then the county might be a welcome participant in a lawsuit that we would file. But I can't speak for the association. I just know that there's a great deal of enthusiasm and emotion in Hiwasse to make sure that we stay Hiwasse. One question that was asked was about the ratio of voters. There are approximately 50 voters in Bella Vista for every one in Hiwasse. I think it's worth noting that Bella Vista is a planned community, which means that from the very first day, there were a great number of both regulations and expectations about the way those properties would be. Hiwasse is a country community that's 150 years old. It's had its own post office for nearly 150 years. The people who live there because they choose to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Douglas, and then Kevin Harrison.
Okay, I just want to say, and maybe I shouldn't throw rocks, but I usually don't. Mix words too much. I stop now. But I attended a meeting last Thursday at Bella Vista City Council. Mr. Williams, Mr. Kelly were there also. And one thing that struck me whenever I had these income figures, I figured how much money they're going to take in. They had no figures on expenses. Is that fair to the citizens of Bella Vista to put something on the ballot before they have done their due diligence to know how much it's going to cost them? I wouldn't stand for that here. I think y'all know that. But there were, it's their city council and their business the way they run it. But I just really have some concerns for the people of Bella Vista. If, they said, why should we bother about looking for the expenses or go to all the trouble of figuring that until we get it on the ballot? Is that not basically what they said? That concerns me about their city government.
George, did you have something?
Well, I was going to mention something that I think you would said Mr. Harrison was.
Well, and what I was going to get to is the same thing that Dan was talking about. Time you look at, because they'll lose the Hiwasse Fire Department, you look at a couple of fire trucks, a building, they're looking at just for the fire service probably close to $1 million that the voters of Bella Vista don't even know about, that they'll have to spend just to put fire service in that area. And then an ambulance, that's just one small aspect of it that if the voters in Bella Vista may not realize that they're going to have to fork that money up pretty quick.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I understand and appreciate the passion expressed by Mr. Curry.
No, that would be Mr. Carr, but that's fine. We're those seniors.
I'm sorry.
Separated birth. It's okay. No.
I'm sorry. It's my second meeting, and the first one was kind of Mr. Carr. And my shaking my head is not an indication of unwillingness to pursue it to the best I can. I can tell you I was contacted about this along the way, just some people expressing concern about it, and I have done some research, and while I could go back and look again, I did not find any way that the county could step in to prevent this. On the other hand, I'll go back and take another shot if that's the desire of the court or the judge or whoever directs me.
Mr. Curry, and then Mr. Allen, and then
Let's
Mr. Hawkins.
get down to the nitty-gritty on this. We all know why in Bella Vista-Hiwasse. It's that 2-mile bypass that's never going to be finished in my lifetime, probably. So that's the real reason. They're looking at this tax revenue someday when we'll probably allow us to be dead and gone. So it's just a land grab, and it's not right. Plain and simple. And I suppose support the Farm Bureau and the people of Hawaii.
Mr. Allen.
And again, I agree with what our attorney, George Spence, said. I share your, well, I guess I don't have the same passion you do, I guess. But I share your concern, I guess. I'm just not going to get that passion. I'm tired right now. But I'm concerned about it. I think that all we can do is what we've talked about tonight. We need to, hopefully we'll get some coverage in the press, Mr. Sissom. And then, but also it's up to us individually as JPs to do our job with our telephones and our feet and our cars, and to drive over and to have a meeting with the mayor or have a meeting with individual city council members and anybody else to do what the American way is, to lobby and to express our sentiments rather strongly and respectfully. And let them know that if it were me talking, I would tell them that I don't normally do this, but I feel strong enough about this to talk to you about this, and that we're going to be keeping an eye on this. And it's obvious in what you're trying to do. And with respect to Area 2, Judge Finer, that you mentioned, well, that's obvious. They're going after the sales tax collections for those businesses there that are high volume, high sales generators, and so that's all that they're doing, and there is no other reason, because they all seem to be doing just fine like they are right now. So, with that said, I would encourage all of us, and I'll make the commitment to reach out and call somebody, if not go visit with somebody myself, to let them know that I don't support what they're doing.
Mr. Hawkins.
Yeah, I think the arguments are totally overwhelming for the Hiwasse area, and I think there's a little clarification from Justice Allen there about the other area too. I would ask the judge, what is the difference really between the blue area and the green area that you've got there, area 2 and 1, as opposed to, I mean, it looks to me like they're all kind of pockets, including the green pocket. Hiwasse's got the 6,000 agricultural acres, and all those arguments are grand, but I don't know about Section 2. I don't know if I could support that without kind of knowing the difference.
Well, I can't tell you the impact of this county.
Right.
And this is Missouri. So technically, we're supposed to provide fire and sheriff and support for these little pockets up here. They're all residential. As far as I know, there's nothing in this blue area that is commercial. Now, I may not know that for sure, but I've been told there's not.
Pretty much residential.
I really don't
That's
have
just
a big problem
just land, kind of like
with filling in these pockets, because that kind of makes sense. Now, I don't know about these areas on the perimeter over here. I'm not sure what they are, but I don't think that for purposes of our county services and the revenue loss or gain, that the blue area is a big problem for me. But that's up to y'all to decide. I just want to be perfectly clear that it's three issues are proposed to put on the ballot, and 3 areas.
Mr. Harrison.
Judge, if you'll stay there for a second. In the area of Hiwasse, can you kind of give us an estimate, or could you get an estimate of how many miles of county road that they would take for the city of
It's in that report that Mr. Schron did. I think it's 43 miles.
43 miles, and about what does the average cost per mile to maintain a road is?
We worked on that a little bit yesterday. That's just almost an impossibility to come up with a number. If you took our total $10 million road budget and divide it by 1,400 miles of road, it's $7,500 a mile. That's really not a good way of doing it.
No, it's not.
Because we've got so many other things in that road department that we don't have a number. There's never been a number established in this county that it costs this much a mile to grade a road or this much. We're working on that. We'll get that eventually under my administration, but we don't have that yet.
I think it's going to be higher than 7,500 to actually maintain, if you maintain it to the rest of the standards of Bella Vista. And again, I think one of the big things that needs to be expressed to the population of Bella Vista is that the bypass is yours down the road. When they take this over, they have what, 12 months, George, to start providing services?
Without looking at the statute, I don't want to quote it.
I think that's what I read.
I think it's in stages, Justice Harrison. Yes. I believe it's in stages. They've got this much time to do this and this. And let me clarify something else, because you know me, I just want to go on the facts. And I don't want us to get off and get something in the newspaper that's not factual. There's been no definitive decision that we would close that station in the middle of Hiwasse. It's probably a fact that if they incorporate Hiwasse, that those runs would not be in the area that's annexed, but there is area outside of the proposed annexation that station could service. And I'm not saying that it won't be closed, but the decision's not been made. The rural fire department would make the call as to whether or not that station gets closed or not, or moved, or whatever.
Well, one of the big things I'm trying to, and hopefully Tom will put in here, is the residents of Bella Vista have to realize that in the long run, this is really going to cost them, and actually could cost them to have to raise their taxes, because they don't have enough city tax revenue coming in right now to cover their existing services. Now you add all this, it's good. They're going to have to pay for it somewhere.
Correct.
And
it is a fact that I'm going to say that the rural fire department, working in cooperation with the county, would not provide fire services for an area that's inside of Bella Vista. So, just want to let you know that I think the statement was made that it would close, and that just hasn't been made yet. It's too early. We're kind of in the infancy here.
No, it's all kind of up to the volunteer firefighters.
That is correct. The Fire Association would make that decision.
But it's still going to, in the long run, they're still looking at a huge, huge investment anyway to take over the fire services within a certain period of time.
It would appear the
police
services
service,
they
roads,
would be taking on would cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And either they would have to raise that money through higher taxes or strain their other services. Is that all the questions you have for me? I don't mind answering them all night long, but I'm sure you want to get on.
That's all I've got.
Did you had your hands up, did he cover everything, or did you need?
I'm just going to summarize real quick.
Okay, please.
My name's Larry Kelly, and I've been here for a number of different reasons, but tonight I'm the chairman of the board of the Hiwasse Community Association. And we are very passionate about this, and I understood from the beginning that actually Quorum Court had no legal standing to do anything, okay? But since you are county representatives, we're part of the county, we do appreciate that support. And I think it's extremely important. I think that just as Justice Allen talked about, that where we need your support is to come to those meetings and to make those opinions known. Not that we have any legal standing for you to do that, but it is extremely important for us. Because we feel in Hiwasse that Bella Vista, just as expressed here, has overreached their boundaries. They are not being properly informed to their constituency. The city council has far exceeded what they should be doing in this case, and it is a land grab, just as the judge had said before. Ill-conceived, not thought out, not prepared, and I'm sorry. He did say that. He just put it in the paper. I'm sorry, but those are the avenues we should take, and I do appreciate that legal counsel is aware of that and giving you great advice and is correct advice. Under their ordinance, they say that they don't have to provide any services for 3 years. So they're talking about, I'm just quoting Section 5 of the ordinance for annexing Hiwasse, is that if annexation is approved and becomes final, the following service areas shall be extended to the area within 3 years: code enforcement, sanitation services, street maintenance, police protection, and fire protection. So they don't really intend to give us anything for 3 years.
Except higher taxes.
Except higher taxes, restrictions, those kind of things. Thank you.
You already have those services currently through the county, correct?
Except for that darn code enforcement, and we don't want none of that.
That was number one on the list.
That was number one on the list, yeah.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think we've hit this pretty hard, and I would go ahead and we've got a motion in a second. I'd call the question
Before you do that,
for a verbal resolution.
you probably need to clarify the motion, because when it was brought up, we were only talking about the pink area as opposed to the green area on the map and all the blue areas, and I just want the court to be clear about what it's doing.
Mr. Jones, would you care to clarify your motion?
My motion is particularly concerned with the Hiwasse area. I do agree with the judge that the blue areas we shouldn't worry about. That rounds out Bella Vista. I've seen most of those areas driving around, and none of them are real farming. They're rural, larger lots than Bella Vista, things like that, but none of it's farm. So I don't. Area 2, I could go both ways. So if somebody wants to amend it, we can vote to amend it, but I'm not going to amend it as my motion. I'm particularly concerned with the Hiwasse area.
Well, there is some, that's down Benton County 40 there. There is some farming and stuff down in there. And
there are, yeah.
There is, and I would like, because I was down there several times this week. So I'd like to see it amended to include that.
Okay, do we have a second for the proposed amendment? Okay, discussion on the proposed amendment?
Yeah.
Mr. Allen?
I can't see the map very well from here, but from here, is there any adjoining county land, or is that an island itself in Area 2? It looks like it's surrounded by green and
line. No, there's adjoining county.
I was trying to say.
Yeah, all the white.
White is the county, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then, so it looks like it's an island currently. Is that right? No, there's a little bit of blue.
It's white.
I didn't see that big blue down there by the green. That definitely is a concern.
Yeah. So part of the blue is concerned.
That is, yes. I missed that at one of the monitors or something.
We need to just condemn the whole annexation. I mean, we've moved beyond.
Can we have Mr. Fargo speak to those?
Well,
No problem.
It'd be our
and it looks like it takes more than what is just what Lowe's and Walgreens from my first glance of what that. I know some people that live in those areas, and I don't think they even know that's taking place. I know there's a lot of publicity about it, but they don't pay attention.
I started to say, there's a lot of them that do not know what's taking place.
So I would support adding that area into our motion as well.
Okay, Ms. Blady, this on the amendment.
Okay, never mind then. I just had a real quick point.
Go.
Because it was brought up that, people really don't know what's going on. The Bella Vista City Council, from what I've been told by a city council person, only has to let one newspaper know, and it's the Weekly Vista.
That's right.
I don't get it, and I live in Bella Vista. So if you don't get that particular newspaper, they don't know what's going on.
Well, we're going to do our best to change that.
Please.
Well, I would also note as part of the process, once it's approved in the election, my recollection is there is a requirement for them to identify all the residents of the area and send them notice. That just hasn't happened yet because the ordinance has not been adopted. So.
Okay, the original motion was for Area 3, and the amendment is for Area 2. Mr. Jones?
After looking at it again and seeing that big blue pocket, if Mr. Harrison and Mr. Harrison will rescind their amendment, I'll amend the main motion.
Let's just vote on the amendment.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, any more discussion on the amendment?
Yep.
If not, everyone in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. So the amended motion would be for Areas 2 and the Benton County Quorum Court to oppose the annexations of Areas 2 and 3.
Correct.
Any discussion on the proposed resolution?
Yeah, I'd like to amend it to also include Area 1.
All areas?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. Another motion to amend for areas, so this would oppose all
amendments.
Annexed areas. Discussion on the amendment. Mr. Allen?
I don't know, I don't understand the opposition to the blue Area 1. I want to go at these folks with some credibility of stance. And Mr. Jones, you may have good reason for doing this. I just don't know what that reason is.
I know there are some farms in that area. I know there are people that are farming in the big blue area down below, and I didn't see that before, or else I would have talked about it. Because the ones on the east side and the north and the south, that is residential. They're not farming there. But and Benton and Bella Vista is not a farm community.
You're talking
the south, the big south pocket, just east of the green, east of the dark green. And that's my concern. I didn't see that before, and I'm glad.
I guess the problem I have, and I guess it's a good reason for making them, one of the gentlemen that spoke a while ago talked about it's been ill-conceived and not thought out well, and that's probably their fault in that I can see the pockets that Judge Steiner talked about by the state border.
Yeah.
Those do need to be cleaned up. Those do, in my opinion, unless they're big farmland. I don't know what that is, but it's not. That probably needs to be cleaned up, put in there. And
Is that a finger of Bentonville going up in, is that orange?
Yeah.
That's the walking trails down by Bella Vista Lake.
Oh, is that bad?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
All of those blue pockets that you're talking about up by the state line, and the fact that the county, at least theoretically, serves those, if the owners of those properties are concerned about that and want to annex into Bella Vista,
They can do it voluntarily.
they can do it voluntarily.
Right.
Yeah.
This process is different. This is the city asserting itself to do it. So if those property owners were concerned about that, they can come in at any time and annex. And I guess the city could object to it, but that's not typical of cities.
So, Mr. Allen, that's why and backing up on my original motion, I was speaking concern with Hiwasse, and I'm glad you had them pull this map back up and discuss that, because that is still a concern for me. The ones that the judge said on the outskirts, it needs to happen. But, like I said, it's not a farm community. It is no way, shape, and form conducive to farms. So, the first thing on the list, the code enforcement, is not going to be conducive to farms whatsoever. So, yeah, and there are. So,
Mr. Douglas, did you have your hand up?
I just had a question for Mr. Stantz. George, if an area is completely surrounded, now I don't know about surrounded by a bordering state as we get to the state line up there, some of those pockets, but I know if it's completely surrounded by an entity, they can go ahead and take that, am I correct, without any annexation vote or anything?
There's a procedure to do it. It's done through the council. It's either if it is completely surrounded by one city, which may sound unusual, but it does happen. Or if it's surrounded by 2 or more cities, but it's completely surrounded, then there are procedures to annex it in. If it's on the border like that, I'm not aware of anything which provides for that, so I think it's either going to have to be done in this fashion or by a voluntary annexation.
Okay, Mr. Scott, did you have your hand up?
Yes. My concern about including Area 1 or that blue area that you see up there, to me it seems like it weakens the position of our argument. And I also think that the county judge has a good argument about the county maintaining some of those areas that are isolated and long ways away from anything else that the county has the responsibility for. And I guess I question, and maybe I can be sold on it if somebody tells me, but I'm not in favor of throwing in Area 1 or in favor of this last amendment unless somebody can tell me how it can strengthen our position.
Joel, can you do that?
It can't strengthen our position, but leaving it as it is and opposing it as it is no different than it has been for the last 30, 40 years when Bella Vista had the POA and was maintaining their own roads, and it wasn't the county maintaining the roads. They did some, but the POA has the road equipment and maintains the POA roads, which is now the City of Bella Vista roads, and didn't maintain those unincorporated or not POA roads. So the county was still doing that. Now, when Bella Vista became a city, they had the city police, and the county did have a sheriff's office. It was sheriff's deputies patrolling Bella Vista, and they patrol those same areas. But it's no different than it has been for the last several years in regards to the county responding to those areas. And I'd like to see them get rid of that big blue pocket. It's different than the rest of the blue pockets around the city. And I can't say it strengthens it, but I can tell you it's no different than it is today. It's no different than it has been for the last any length of time you can think of. So.
Mr. Allen, Mr. Winscott, and Mr. Harrison.
And Mr. Winstead? Forgot your name.
Try Curry.
I haven't got to item number 3 yet on the agenda. I had your same concern. I've been sitting here thinking about this amendment, and I guess I'll support it. In the last thing that Joel just said makes sense to me, in that it's ill-conceived. If they would go back and take out the large blue area there where the farms are around County 40 and amend their blue area to not include that, then it makes sense for a cleanup and to take those areas, because I do understand the need for incorporated areas to have continuous areas to police, to maintain from whatever perspective it might be. It gets to be a problem for 911 to have to understand if you've got an emergency out there and like, oh wait a minute, that little small area is not part of Bella Vista. I can't send whoever out there. And then technically we need to send a deputy from way down here all the way across to service that little pocket up by the border. So I can understand those, and I would support that, but I guess based on that area that's down by the county in the big blue area on the southeast portion, if they would take that out of what the annexed area of the blue or the area number 1, I would support it. So I guess if, Joel, if you go to the meeting, if any of us others go to this meeting, that's the way you position it to keep credibility with them, is that is our position, is that, you know, unfortunately, the way you've presented this to everybody, we're going to have to throw out everything because of the way you've drafted it. If you go back and revise it to where it makes more sense, we could support most of the blue area. Is that a correct or interpretation of the way I think we all feel in that? So I can see where there's credibility in us going forth with this, simply because of the way they drafted it.
Okay, Kevin Harrison and then Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Winscott and then Mr. Harrison. Okay, Mr. Harrison.
Well, what I was going to say, it hadn't been that many years ago that they, first of all, that they incorporated, and if they really wanted to, those blue pockets, if it was that big of a deal, why didn't they just include them then? So, I mean, it's only been a few years.
2006. Yep. Okay, yes, Mr. Carr.
Is it possible to amend it to where we're just, when it comes to Area 1, that we oppose the area immediately east of Area 2? I mean, if that's what the concern is, I mean, I agree. These fringe areas probably need to be cleaned up because that costs our taxpayers more money.
We're not doing a written resolution anyway, so.
We just propose all.
The way it is now.
He's not going to remember what we said anyway.
Probably not. It's going to. Yeah,
This map's going to be there, right? You're taking notes?
Let's take the map and, yeah.
Richard will go hold it for us.
Are we ready to vote?
Voting on the amendment?
Yes.
Yeah, but this is voting on the second amendment to include area 1, or all,
Everything.
all areas. Everyone in favor of including all areas, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have somebody communicate to the total court the next meetings at Vista so that those that are available and desire to attend and express the concern of this court have the information and know when to do that.
okay.
Yes, and also one of the things I'd like George to check on for us is that they said that they had 3 years to provide that letter. I would really like to know, is it that long to provide services, or is it staged, or what? Because I think we owe it to these people to give them, make sure they have the correct info.
Well, as I said, I had been contacted about this maybe as far back as November by some people opposing it, and I decided not to get involved or pursue it. I kind of looked at it a little bit, but because of my position here, and I wasn't sure how the court would feel, I kind of said, well, you've got these options, but since the court seems to be so passionate, as we have said, I will do some additional looking and check and see what areas there might be to.
All right, and like I said, the big thing for me is the time frame that they have to provide the services if they choose to go forward. Is it 3 years or?
And I can't recall that off the top of my head. I know they have to provide some information about when they will provide services, and then I know that there is a methodology if they don't provide services that you can de-annex, but the exact strictures of all that I don't have at hand tonight.
Okay, Mr. Jones?
The next meeting of the Bella Vista City Council is at 6:30 on January 23rd. It's the fourth Monday of the month. It's at the Bella Vista Highlands Crossing Community TV channel taping room. It's on there it's on the Bella Vista City's webpage where they meet exactly. And the third reading of this annexation ordinance should be read at that time, unless the agenda changes.
They may change the location.
Mr. Kelly?
Okay.
I would just like to add that last time they did change the location of the council meeting because of all the turnout of the Hiwasse folks, and they held it at the Medfield Clubhouse, but they did post it on their website before the council meeting.
Okay. Is everyone ready to
6:30.
Is everyone ready to vote on the main motion, which was the opposition to the annexation, and all in total?
Oh, we are ready.
Okay. Everyone in favor of the resolution, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item 3, resolution request reappointment of Leah Whitehead, Historical Preservation Commission. Who's presenting the resolution?
I didn't put that on there. It's just an appointment.
Okay. So we just need we need a motion to put it on the agenda to forward it on to Quorum Court.
Right.
Would somebody be willing to make the motion?
Second.
Motion and second to reappoint Leah Whitehead, Historical Preservation Commission. Discussion? All in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Okay. Okay, number 4, clerk read by title only.
An appropriation ordinance amending appropriation ordinance number O 2010-56, 2011 Benton County budget, authorizing a transfer of funds between categories and line items, appropriating additional monies, and authorizing additional expenditures in various funds and departments to balance out the year 2011.
Justice Allen.
This is our usual year-end cleanup, one of our cleanup ordinances. Various different items listed in here. We voted on this at the Finance Committee meeting, and I'll move for its approval.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, item 5, title only.
An appropriation ordinance amending appropriation ordinance number O 2011-61, 2012, Benton County budget, appropriating additional monies and authorizing additional expenditures in Department 23, non-departmental maintenance fund 010.
Justice Allen.
This is for engineering and architectural fees for the existing JDC and Public Defender's Building, $10,000. We obviously passed this out of finance. I move for its approval.
Second.
Okay. Motion second. Discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Item 6.
An appropriation ordinance amending appropriation ordinance number O 2011-61, 2012 Benton County budget, appropriating additional monies and authorizing additional expenditures in Department 66, Public Safety Fund 010.
Justice Allen.
Once again, out of finance with approval, to come to this committee for $30,000 for the emergency medical services study. I move for its approval.
Motion second. Discussion.
Who seconded that?
Who was the second?
Me. Mr. Curry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, like signs.
An appropriation ordinance amending appropriation ordinance number O 2011-61, 2012 Benton County budget, appropriating additional monies and authorizing additional expenditures in Department 44, Road Department, Fund 020.
Justice Allen. Also, when you make your motion, specify that it needs to go to the Quorum Court.
Thank you. As you can see here, it's $324,209 for dump trucks that were purchased but not delivered until this year. So that's the reason for that transfer. And the other one's for $60,000 worth of storm damages occurred in 2011 but not paid for yet. I move for its approval to go on to the next Quorum Court meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to send this item to the next Quorum Court meeting. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Number 8.
An appropriation ordinance amending appropriation ordinance number O 2011-61, 2012 Benton County budget appropriating additional monies and authorizing additional expenditures in Department 01 EECBG Recovery Grant Fund, Fund 190.
Mr. Allen?
Once again, out of Finance Committee with approval for the grant expenditures carried over for 2012, $249,539. I move that it be approved and sent on to the next quorum court meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion second on the floor. I might add, we're getting into, last item on our agenda is going to be on the vicious dog ordinance. We do allow public comment on various items, and if anyone wishes to address the court before we vote on that item, please raise your hand and I will recognize you before we vote. On this particular item, is there any discussion? I seeing none, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, item 9.
An appropriation ordinance amending appropriation ordinance number O 2011-61, 2012 Benton County budget appropriating additional monies and authorizing additional expenditures in Department 23 Public Services Building Fund 440.
Justice Allen?
Once again, out of Finance for the expenses that were for the remodeling of the Public Services Building, carrying over to 2012 that weren't completed. I move that it's approved and sent on to the next quorum court meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion and second on the floor. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Item 10.
An appropriation ordinance amending appropriation ordinance number O 2011-61, 2012 Benton County budget appropriating additional monies and authorizing additional expenditures in Department 44 West Side Road Facility Fund 440.
Justice Allen?
Pretty self-explanatory. This is for the West Side Road Department, carried over expenses for 2012. I move for its passage and sent on to the next quorum court meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion and second on the floor. Discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, item 11.
An ordinance to address vicious dog problems.
Justice Winscott?
Yes, this ordinance originally came to the legislative committee. They heard the victim testify and passed it on to the public safety committee. The public safety committee passes it on to the committee of 13 with a couple minor changes. And I move that it be approved and be sent to the quorum court.
Second.
Okay, motion and second on the floor. Discussion?
I might add that if the victim of this, Mrs. Brewer, is here, if you have any questions for her, she'd be glad to take them.
Okay. I'll be recognizing the members in the audience once the justices have commented. Is there any comments from any justice on this? Mr. Harrison?
Yeah. I've read the ordinance, and the only part that I see that I kind of disagree with is I think as long as the property, or as long as the animal stays on the property, not the residence in the house, and it doesn't trespass on either public right-of-way or another person's property, then I would say that because as we all know out in the county, there's a lot of dogs that never move from the front yard. Cattle dogs and different things, stock dogs, of course I know they exempt. But I'm out there all the time, and there's a lot of dogs that just stay on their property. And as long as they're not trespassing on someone else's property or in the public right-of-way, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, we are a rural area, mostly where this is going to take place. And a lot of people have their dogs trained to guard their property. And that's just my feeling. So I'd like to see the language change to some way to incorporate that where, as long as it's not in a public right of way or trespassing on someone else's property.
Mr. Jones?
There is language in the ordinance specifically about the protection of private property and persons. If I'm walking up to somebody's front door to knock on their door to deliver a package, to tell them I'm their JP and I'm running again, okay, and I'm not threatening. Some people say I'm threatening. I'm a big boy, but I'm not being of a threatening nature, and I'm unprovoked attacked. There's a problem there. The main reason, as has been stated for a lot of this, is when there is a problem like that, the sheriff and the deputies have no recourse to handle the vicious dog. It's very hard to take that vicious dog out of the equation. So there is language for the protection of private property and persons. So if there's somebody that is truly trespassing of a threatening nature, it's right there in the ordinance. That's an exemption, and that's not considered a vicious dog. And going out to the end of the yard, there are subdivisions even out in the county that have sidewalks that go through the yard at the very front. That isn't in the in the public right of way, but it's in the public
domain.
Setback off the street, and I guess easement. Yes. So there is that's vague. That's vague, and that's the end of the property is two different things to where somebody can and should walk, and what the exact edge of the property is up against the public right of way. So I think the language in there is sufficient for that purpose of protection.
Okay. It was Mr. Allen, and then it was Jay Harrison, I believe.
I missed the committee meetings for this before, although I've taken an interest in reading about it, and I haven't had a chance to have any discussion on this. I do have interest in this. Unfortunately, my wife has been bitten by some dogs while she's been on the walk on a county road, and by a farm dog or two that have been very aggressive. And it's a concern of mine. I've actually gone out there with a baseball bat, hoping the dog would attack me. Of course, they wouldn't attack when I had a baseball bat. Probably is a good thing. But it says here in Article 2 at the end where it's underlined, however, no dog shall be defined as a vicious dog for actions occurring within the residence of its owner. Residence shall mean the actual residential structure on a property.
Exactly.
So my concern about that is your example, if you're walking down the sidewalk and you're on someone's property, how do we, if I've got a dog that's there to protect me, if someone comes into my yard with the intent to do harm to me, I'd much rather my dog attack that guy in my yard than in my house. Because once they get in the house, they're in the house. That's the only concern that I see the way this is written. I have concern about the fact that if they're on my property, they need, I think if I have a dog to protect me, then that dog should be able to legally protect me in my front yard, side yard, or backyard. And I don't know if Mr. Spence can address that or not.
I guess what I'd say about that is, if somebody enters a residence, and understand, I don't have any particular interest in this being drawn a particular way. The underlined portion in here was added after the first presentation to respond to some committee members' concerns. But if somebody's entering a residence owned by somebody, whether the owner is present or not, that's one thing. But if you're out in somebody's yard, if you're just passing by and you're in the right of way, and that person is not present, I don't think that y'all would be interested in exempting that situation.
Correct.
If the person is present and they're defending, well, it does talk about the tendency or disposition to attack unprovoked. Well, is there provocation there? And unfortunately, I can't write something perfect. As I said the other night, this is going to require some people to exercise good common sense. Miss Beeman, the lady that's here who has spoken at both of the committee meetings about this, and I want to make very clear, this is not simply about her. Her situation brought this up, but the reason this has come forward is because Captain Jones from the Sheriff's Office contacted me and said the ordinance that we currently have is a little bit difficult to apply. Could you come up with something that's a little more straightforward and simple that just relates to dogs, which is where this came about. So it's not perfect. Miss Beeman, when she spoke the other night, said, and I think this is probably the smartest thing that's been said about this, this is not about the dogs. This is about the owners. And if owners are properly managing their animals, you're never going to have a problem under this ordinance.
Well, can I follow up?
Yes.
You know, something too is that we currently do have, I don't know what was discussed in the committee, but we currently do have a leash law, correct?
We have an ordinance that deals with vicious, well, it's not vicious, it's actually referred to as dangerous or hazardous animals.
Well, we also have a dogs at large.
But the Sheriff's Office was aware of those, didn't feel like and we've actually gotten a call from a citizen saying, well, we already have this, why are we just doing this again? And the reason is we wanted to have something that was straightforward. I actually, before I drew it up this way, I tried to take the information that we have and kind of tried to incorporate it into the current code of ordinances, but it just didn't fit all that well. So I wrote it this way. As I said before, this copies an ordinance from the city of Rogers and just basically applies it to the county and adds the couple of things that I've been asked to add along the way. And it's meant to be simple and easy for the deputies to apply. That's why it's written the way it is. Now, I've kind of gone off and answered a lot of my own questions and probably not answered yours, so if I haven't, repeat it and I'll try.
Well, I was under the impression that we had, as a result of my wife being bitten a couple of years ago when she was walking down a county road, about a dog that came off of private property onto the county road and bit her on the hip. We called, actually she called, I didn't, and was told that there was a leash law. And I'm not one to not get along with neighbors or farmers because I know I'm not, I grew up out in some acreage as well, and I don't necessarily want the dog to be leashed, put on a leash because of one particular thing. But I was under the impression there was a leash law, so I wanted to ask that question and get a clarification as to whether there is or not. But going to the point you made that there is a responsibility of the owner of the animal, and going to the point I made earlier, if you're going to have an animal in your front yard that has a propensity to bark, you need to train the animal not to be in the front yard attacking people or to go to a certain point in the yard to stop. And if you can't control that animal to where it goes beyond a certain point, then I think that the owner needs to take the responsibility to put it in the backyard where there's a fence or put it in the house or something. And so I hope that that is part of the good judgment that you have to have. How do you enforce good judgment? And the other part is, vicious dog, a propensity to attack. What is that? I will use the example of mine again to where you're walking down a county road and every time you walk down that road, the dogs will bark and run and make all kinds of noises and scare you to death. but they don't always bite. But one time they do bite, is that a propensity to attack? So my worry is that because you've only been bitten once, they'll come out and investigate and go, well, how many times you walk down this road? Well, I walk down it every day. It's not raining. How many times have you been bitten? Well, just this once. Well, then that's not a propensity to attack. So does this really help you? So that's a question I have.
Go ahead and answer this.
Does it help? What I can say is that the Sheriff's Office asked us to address it. What we did was look at the City of Bentonville and the City of Rogers ordinances that deal with this. We ended up using the City of Rogers for two reasons. One, it's simple. And two, the Captain Jones, who is the one who brought this to my attention and asked me to look at it, was the former police chief of the City of Rogers, used this in the City of Rogers and said it worked fine. So from an effectiveness point of view, you know, it's easier for them to apply. It's something that he's got experience with in the past. I apologize. So.
Okay, Jay?
Okay, George.
Were you done, Tom?
Yeah, it didn't. I understand. I appreciate all that. But it doesn't answer the question as to whether or not that would constitute a. Could the deputy actually cite the owner of that animal for that? I don't know how you go about determining
On a one-off event like that.
You have to be bitten numerous times or attacked viciously, or I don't understand.
What the deputy's going to have to do is look at this and make a determination, just like they have to do with lots of other cases, about whether or not it applies. A known propensity, tendency, or disposition to attack unprovoked, based on the facts that you stated, where the dogs are boisterous but haven't actually come out and attacked and they finally do, probably at that point it's not a problem. But the next attack, there's the lawyers call them in the law the one bite rule, which would apply in any instance. If you've got a dog that attacks somebody, probably the first time it's you're not going to get sued. The second time you are going to get sued because now you're on notice. And you asked earlier about a leash law. I know that we have a hazardous dog or a hazardous animal ordinance. Exactly if that applies as a leash law, I can't recall. I'd have to look at it again.
I thought we had a dogs at large.
Well, we've got some ordinances which deal with animals, and by the time of the quorum court meeting, I will obviously be able to answer those very specifically.
Because I remember researching it for another constituent at a time, and supposedly there is an ordinance that prevents people from allowing dogs to roam.
That's what I thought.
It doesn't specifically say leash, but it does say you have to control the animal, or have control of the animal. Jay Harrison.
Yeah, George, in this edition in Article 2, the exemptions on the structure, I mean, wouldn't the number 2 in Article 3 pretty much cover that, since it says protection of private property? I mean, I'm just concerned that maybe overkill there. I mean, private property does include the structure, correct?
Well, what I can tell you, I was asked to add that.
Okay.
I thought it was covered beforehand, but and this happened in the legislative committee, it was thought that needed to be emphasized more, which is why it was added.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Hanlon, and then Mr. Curry.
Okay. Well, one item in regards to Ms. Beeman's attack. It was an occurrence that did take place multiple times to multiple people. It was on public property that she traveled frequently. Fortunately, it was only attacked. She was only attacked once, but as her statement was, I believe this is not about the animals. It's about people protection, because there's a lot of people that travels those roads. Fortunately, she was able to get loose without being totally and permanently damaged. Your wife also. But there are those, and she mentions specifically children, the elderly, which I'm working that direction. I couldn't get away, I'm afraid. I have been bitten on a person's property, performing county duties, and witnesses, property owner there, you still get bitten. But was it a propensity of viciousness? No. It was on its turf, in its backyard. The fact that they were leaving, yeah, a protest for the property owner. I don't know. But there is going to be, like George said, allow a one-bite rule, as long as they only take one bite. But no, we do need to have something to protect the property owner, even if it's a kid running across the end of your yard. I don't want a dog biting them simply because the kids didn't notice their own private property.
Mr. Curry? I made some notes down here on this. The actual residence is considered the only property structure of the property. I put a note down here. Wouldn't a fully enclosed fence, privacy fence, constitute part of the structure? Fully enclosed, connected to the house? That's how I've always kept my dogs, in the backyard and the fence. I've never had any, didn't bite anybody. Wouldn't that be considered part of the structure is what I'm asking?
I don't think that would be. We talked about fences the other night at the Public Safety Committee. The problem is in how you define it. Because if you say a privacy fence, I guess if you said even if you say a fully enclosed privacy fence, that one thing I think about is there's fully enclosed fences which aren't privacy fences. You could have a chain link, and so when you get into talking about fences, it becomes such a definitional problem. It's pretty easy to define the residential structure. And I think if you control your dogs, which I think most folks do, you're never going to have that problem. As I said, this is about the people being responsible.
Okay, Kevin Harrison.
Well, and back to their point, the most cases is where the person was, as Mr. Allen and this lady, they both were bitten on public property or right away. And I still say, as long as the dog is in its residence, which is the yard. My dog stays out in the yard all the time, and I'm out in the county all the time talking to people. And I can tell you, I probably come across 15, 20 dogs a day that aren't on a leash. They're not vicious. They lay out in the street. They lay on the side. They don't bother nobody. But I do have a problem with vicious dogs. I would never own a vicious dog, and I think most people are that way. But if someone is not smart enough to realize that their dog is vicious, this is not going to matter one hill of beans. I mean, it just gives us one way to determine if a dog is vicious. So I still say, but you have those cases where a dog is trained and they are on their property. And I don't care, I can tell you, my folks live out in the country and they got a dog and they got a yard dog and he does his job. He lets them know someone comes up and the UPS guy comes up. He don't get out of the truck. But old George lays there and doesn't bother anybody unless they come on the property, and he does his job. as a yard dog. And that's why I say, I don't have a problem with this, but I want to see it so if the dog is on its property or the owner's property, then that's the way it is. I mean, if a dog is on the property and he bites somebody, there's other remedies to take care of that. You can take them to court, you can get your medical bills or whatever. But if you go on that property once and and the dog bites you, if you go back, you're probably going to be a little more aware that the dog does that. And I mean, and most people I know that do have that situation has it posted, beware of dogs. But I just think that as long as the dog is, we're not the city of Rogers, we're not the city of Bentonville, we're dealing with the rural areas of the county. And I understand. I want to make sure that if you can run down the street, not get harassed by dogs, not get bit. I agree with that. And what I'm asking to be changed wouldn't change that one hill of beans. It would not prevent. They can still do that. And if they can't do that, that dog is deemed vicious and dealt with appropriately. Am I correct?
Are you responding, Ms. Sanders?
I think so. One, no, we're not the city of Rogers. We're not the city of Bentonville. But the injury that is suffered by the person being bitten doesn't hurt any less because they're in an unincorporated area. It takes longer to get a response for an emergency than what it would be if it were inside an incorporated area. Two, this is for the protection of the people, not the people's dog. And if this dog is not properly contained on the property, there's nothing to stop it from going over the fence, under the fence, through the fence to bite, and being back on the property like a good little dog by the time any response can be there. Are we going to then go into forensics to prove whether or not that was the dog that bit said victim? I have dogs. I've had dogs always loose and contained. The dogs that started this particular action had been contained. They didn't stay contained. In a variety of methods, they didn't stay contained. But I don't want 4 different victims to make certain that a dog is proven vicious. So I will give them, if they're staying inside, but they don't. I've had friendly dogs that didn't stay inside of the fence. They could go over a fence, privacy or otherwise. A smaller dog. Fortunately, the dog was friendly.
But they would have been, they could, under the same scenario I'm talking about, when they come off the property to buy, they would have been, that would have met the criteria of being deemed as vicious. I mean, the only thing I'm talking about is considering the actual property boundaries as part of the same as a residence. I'm not talking about expanded it past that. If it goes on a neighbor's property and bites somebody, guess what? It's trespassing on their property and it could be deemed vicious. If it goes out in the public right of way, it's trespassing on public property and it could be deemed vicious. I'm talking about just holding it within the boundaries, and we're accomplishing the same thing. All I'm doing is, and I'm not doing this to protect the dog's rights, I'm doing it to protect the property owner's rights. I don't see this as the issue of dogs. I see this the issue of property owners' right, having the right to protect their property, and you know, they have that choice to do that. And if someone trespasses on their property, the way this is written, whether or not the dog is in the right or wrong, he could be deemed vicious, the way I read it. If the dog is protecting the property the way I'm talking about doing it, where it's within the boundaries of its properties, it can't be deemed vicious because it's doing its job. But in here it says trained guard dog. Well, who certifies that a dog is trained? In order to have a trained guard dog, you got to send it to a special training academy. That don't mean that dog hadn't been trained to stay on this property and protect that property. I know a lot of farmers, I know a lot of people, they don't send their dogs down here to school and pay X amount to get them trained. They train them themselves. And they tie them to another dog, or there's lots of ways to train dogs. So I'm saying, in my opinion, that we need to include this so it's the boundaries of the property, and I won't vote for it in any other way. I want to vote for this, but I want that one little concession.
There's a difference in property and people. If I'm willing to lose something, you can take my property, it's stuck. But not the people. And there have been people who died because of a one-time friendly dog attack on the owner's property.
Under our scenario, that it would still happen. That's not going to stop that. We're talking about an issue of known viciousness, and anybody can walk up, and if it's a one-time friendly dog attack and it kills somebody, that dog's probably going to be put down anyway. And so we're talking about a tendency to repeat here. But again, if a dog is a repeat offender, he's going to be deemed vicious, and he's going to be got rid of if it's off property. If he's on his property doing his job, then that's all I'm saying. And if the dog bites somebody once on his property, that unprovoked, he's going to be on notice, and if it happens again, like George says, he's going to get sued. But I don't think that as long as it's on his property, that it should be the county ordinance to send someone out there to do it if the dog's doing his job, or thinking he's doing his job.
Okay. I've got people stacked up here. Mr. Hawkins?
Yeah, I would just add that I'm very sympathetic to a dog attack in any way, fashion, or form. But I have to, in this particular case, I have to kind of agree with Justice Harrison here and answer both Jones and Sandlin that if it is on your property, I feel like that's an extension of your person, of your property. And if a dog is on his property, it never leaves his property to go to an easement, or, I mean, like he says, if it gets out of its property, even talking about Curry, not Carr, that, you could have a fence, and if it's in the fence, somebody climbs the fence, and gets bitten, I certainly would not think that would be proper to hold the property owner liable for somebody climbing their fence to get in the property if the dog bites them. Now, if it gets out of the fence, leaves his property, absolutely. That's what we're talking about here. Now, what Justice Jones mentioned is if some just innocent person's walking up to the door and the dog's on the front porch and starts barking and bites him, that might be a different story there too. But I would have a tendency to say that anybody coming to the house, if they're coming to break in, they're going to end up saying that, hey, I was just going up there to introduce myself and the dog bit me. I mean, how are you going to with no witnesses? Who's going to say who's on the property doing what? And if you have a dog up there that's fairly trained to keep someone from breaking in or protecting its house and its owner, on its property, I just don't see that as a problem. And I would tend to agree with Harrison here that it's too broad in my standpoint. I would love to have a vicious dog ordinance type thing if it gets out of its own domain or out of its realm. But as long as it's on its property, I think this is overreaching. And that would be my comment. And I would vote the same way appropriately.
Okay, Mr. Jones?
The concession is already there. Article 3, Clause 2.
Yeah.
Doesn't say anything about trained security dogs. It says a security dog, which in any case could be a yard dog, could be any dog that you're using for your security. It's not defined in this, and I don't think security dog is defined in our code. So at that point, it's a little ambiguous, but it's up to the judge and the lawyers to make that case whether it's a security dog, and it seems like to me that's.
If I can interrupt, I think item 3 talks about service dogs acting in the performance of duties for which they were trained. So item 2 and 3 are completely different.
Yes. Okay. So security dogs acting as such in the performance of the protection of private property and persons. So my case of somebody walking up and knocking on the front door is already covered. I don't think that every dog I've ever known has been able to tell pretty quickly what you're up to, good or bad. I don't know every dog, but they're pretty good at sensing whether a person is up to no good. So that concession's already there. If they're on their private property, it's an exemption to them being a vicious dog if they attack them.
So why are we worried about it? Let's just leave that out and say as long as the dog is on its fair. I mean,
leave this part out. What part do you want to
anybody can get up
leave
there
out?
and say, under the standards you just said, anybody can get up there and say, well, my dog, I trained it myself and it was protecting my property. In order for a court to find someone that a dog was a security trained dog, they're going to want to see the security trained papers. Otherwise, I don't care who you are, you can get up there and say, I trained my dog to protect my property.
I don't think item 2 says that.
No,
so,
it doesn't. I mean, it's not defined, so it is ambiguous. And it gets defined, and the judge isn't going to define it. The judge is going to make a ruling on it, as I understand it. But what are you trying to take out? Which piece are you wanting to take out?
All I want it to do is basically take out the portion of confined to the that the property is defined as a structure. Property,
okay.
The property.
May I suggest what I think J.P. Harrison is suggesting is that the underlying language in Article 2 be amended to read, however, no dog shall be defined as a vicious dog for actions occurring on the property of its owner, period, and delete the rest of it.
Correct.
Yeah, I would say that too.
I can go with that.
And is that your motion to amend?
Yes, that's
Mr.
my motion to
Hawkins?
amend.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to second. You have a question about the motion?
Mr. Tellen.
Snuck in ahead of everybody, didn't I? On that, I know we're splitting hairs, but I kind of like that amendment because I brought up the point earlier as well. But what about the example of easements or areas, sidewalks where you're going in? So let me ask the question. If you're walking on a sidewalk in my front yard, my dog comes up and attacks you,
A sidewalk.
you're not doing anything to provoke it. What happens?
A sidewalk, in my opinion, anytime a sidewalk goes through property, it's a public easement. It's either owned by the POA or it's owned by the city.
No, it's owned by the property owner. The city has an easement to it.
Yeah.
You don't have title to it. You own the property.
That's correct. What Justice Allen is saying is correct.
Yeah.
You own the property. There is an easement for people.
But it's a public easement.
Right.
So I would consider public easement as public property. I mean, I would consider
It's not the same thing.
I mean, and we can include that.
I see what you're saying. I can draw it in such a way, I think, that will satisfy both your
sides.
concerns and
Yeah.
Justice Harrison.
Yeah.
Can we not just strike that entire
I'm the same
section?
way on
It's already in there about the exemption for private property. And private property already includes any structure that's on the property. So,
It says as defined as a structure.
look down, read down to Article 3, Clause 2, private property and persons.
Yeah, it might be easier just to strike the whole underlined section.
That's there for emphasis.
That might take reference out.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine.
That's what I've been saying. It's already there.
But then it could get
Who was first?
The amended this.
Okay, go.
Just real quick, I think the reason that that underlined thing came in was because number 2 was, I think it said trained security dogs. I think that the intent of the exemptions were for buildings, was for that kind of security. Am I correct in that?
It never said trained security dogs. To me, that's what it appears to be saying. Some of you have been talking about how a court would interpret this.
I think that was the entire reason for that.
A court's going to interpret that
A security
broadly.
dog, right. Okay, I just wanted to make that statement.
Because it's ambiguous and not defined, right?
Yes, and a court would be forced to interpret that exemption broadly.
Mr. Douglas, and then Mr. Carr.
I've had so many thoughts here, I don't know which one went where. I'm getting kind of chasing around the tree here. Yeah, one thing on this number 2 says private property. A sidewalk going through a public easement would not be private property, so that would kind of clear that up a little bit. Also on vicious, just because a dog runs out and nips your heel or something, or bites you once and whatever, and you get off from it, is one thing. A dog that mauls somebody is something else. So you've got to take vicious versus, nippy.
Well, I don't want any, Matt, you go down a slippery slope and start demeaning what is, speaking from someone close to me, my wife, someone may not think what happened to her was vicious, but she may think it was vicious.
That's good.
And if it's traumatic to you emotionally, that can also damage you. If you are fearful to take a walk down a county road, that's a problem. I don't want to demean the fact that someone may determine that as a nip, that's not going to be covered in this. So I hope that's not the intent of this ordinance, because people have different pain tolerances levels. You get it all kinds. If you have a cut, you need 3 stitches. That may not mean much to somebody, but it may mean something to the person who got attacked. 3 stitches. So I hope that that's not the intent. But on Article 3, I think that I thought that covered it. After reading it, I thought that was fine. I'm also fine with the amendment that George has proposed that we do to change it to property. But if you'll write it in such that you said that you could clarify what's an easement for public people or whatever.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, let me just throw something else out that may simplify this even more. Maybe what we ought to do is strike all of the underlying language in Article 2. In Article 3, subsection 2, instead of saying security dogs, just say dogs protecting private property and persons. And that kind of, I think, addresses both needs. So, does that satisfy people?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Is this, to me that reads that if you have your dog, well, I guess, if that's what we're meaning, if you have your dog with you and you're off your property and they're protecting you off your property, would that be interpreted as an exemption to this case?
Yes.
Okay. If that's the intent, I'm good with that intent. I want everybody, that's the way I read it in that situation. And
number 3.
Service dog. I interpret service dog as
Seeing eye helper.
seeing eye dog, things like that. Yeah.
All right, I'd like to rescind my previous motion to amend.
I second. I'll rescind the second.
And I'd like to make a new motion to amend as George Spence had outlined it there.
Second.
And send it on to the quorum court like that?
And send it on to the quorum court like that.
Motion and second on the floor to accept the ordinance as now drafted. Everyone understand? Mr. Carr. See, now even I'm having trouble with it.
We've known each other longer than, well, other than me and Tom, maybe. I think I've known him longer than you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're picking hairs here. I don't have a dog in the hunt. I think what's going to happen here is this is going to come down to attorneys and judges figuring out what we're attempting to define as vicious. They're going to redefine anyway. If we want to strike that underline, I got no issues with that. I think it's a good thing. Let's strike it. I think we're beating the dead horse here. We're trying to find what's property, what's not property, what's easement, what's not easement. We've got one in Siloam Springs, and basically if your dog comes out and bites somebody in a vicious manner, which is arbitrary, your dog's going to be removed, and you're going to have to deal with it in court. And I think that's what we're trying to get to here, is it not?
Yeah.
So I think we're killing ourselves here to define vicious dog on a property, off a property. If I skirt the front end of your property and your Doberman comes out and takes a chunk out of my rear end, you're probably going to get sued anyway, and you're probably going to have your dog euthanized. Because I'm going to make sure my attorney does that, because that's what we paid him for. So, let's get this thing over with. And let's not beat it to death anymore tonight or in quorum court. Let's just move this thing forward. I'd ask you to call for a question.
Well, Ms. Sandler, did you have something real quick?
Well, two things. Clarification on this amendment. Are we also amending out the underlined number 4 of Article 3?
No. I don't believe so.
Okay. Only Article 2.
Right.
I wanted to make certain that was clarified. And I would like to see...
Well, before we vote, I'm going to recognize the individuals.
Is there a scrivener's? I hate to pick on you, George. Should that be Article 5 after 4? When you're revising it for the quorum court?
Article 3.
3 was twice.
Look on the back. That's
Article
4.
No, I intended it to read like that.
I want to mean that we change that.
I leave stuff in there like that for y'all to catch.
Make sure we're
Just saying we're paying
Just
attention,
wanted to
right?
know if we were reading.
Okay, are we ready for public comment?
Yes.
Okay, good. Please come forward.
Thank you again for letting me speak tonight. I'm Julie Beeman. I was attacked by my neighbor's dogs in my neighborhood within sight of my home in Prairie Creek. And that's what kind of got the ball rolling on this, was when Captain Jones was trying to help me resolve that issue, and we found out that there really wasn't a whole lot that could be done. So many things have been said tonight that I want to go, yeah, thank you, yes, thank you for saying that. First of all, I'm amazed. You guys deal with a wide range of topics. What we have covered tonight, but you said something earlier, Mr. Carr, with the Hiwasse thing. If we're not here to protect the citizens, then why are we here? And yeah, I get it. Your dogs are important. Your property is important. I am an animal owner myself. I grew up on a farm. I have all kinds of animals. Absolutely, I get that. But there's not a single animal on this planet trying to protect any single person or item that is more valuable than the person that they are attacking for it. And the reason I say that is because this issue that's come up with what is property, what isn't property, if I'm understanding you correctly, and if I'm not, then please correct me because I do want to understand it. But if I'm understanding your proposed amendment to this part, that would mean that my 7-year-old selling Girl Scout cookies, walking up to their door not knowing that they have 250-pound boxers with a recorded propensity to attack for the previous 4 years gets absolutely mauled and disfigured and mentally scarred for the rest of her life as I am, it's too bad.
No.
Okay.
And first of all, if that happens, that dog's going to be taken by the sheriff's office. There's no doubt under this. But the other is that because I've been, my face, my dimples are from a dog bite, so I know. Believe me. And so I really do empathize with what you're talking about. But the children, the owner, is got to take common sense. If they're not going to have common sense when your kids walk up to that, this law is not going to stop that dog from doing that. All this is going to do is give a way for the county to deal with it once it has happened.
Right.
And I hate to say that. That's all this is going to do. And, it's our problem here is like any legislation. We have to walk a fine line between everyone's rights.
Mm-hmm.
And we just want to try to create the best medium that we can.
So, and that was my understanding on this anyway. The first time a dog acts out or attacks or whatever you want to say it, it's a warning to the owner. Nothing would be done the first time.
Depends on the severity of it.
Oh, okay. And see, that's what I haven't understood and what hasn't been clear.
A bite is one thing, a mauling is something else.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I understand that better than because the thought to me, of the Jehovah's Witness coming to the door and being attacked is okay, because they were on my front porch and this is my property, and that's.
Did we include that in there?
But that's how it was sounding, and I want to make sure that a person new to the neighborhood can take a goodie basket at Christmas to their neighbor without, worrying about being attacked by a dog that's been doing this for years. And for those of you who haven't been here in the previous meetings, that is the situation that I was in. These two particular dogs had attacked at least 14 different individuals in the past 4 years, and because we're outside of the city limits where a very similar thing exists, not much could be done. If this had existed, or if I had lived just a few miles further inside, I wouldn't be in this position. And we're just trying to keep that happening from anybody else. There was something else said earlier that I wanted to address, and I don't remember what it was now.
Well, if you think of it, I'll go ahead and recognize you again. Mr. Allen?
Maybe if I talk a little bit, maybe you'll remember what it was. But some of the things that were going through my mind, Justice Harrison covered. But as I was thinking through this and asking questions, listening to comments, I was thinking in terms of what you mentioned. I was also thinking of, I was thinking of a child walking up selling cookies. And certainly, just because we include the front yard, for example, or the front porch now as an exemption, it doesn't give the dog or the property owner of the dog the right to attack at any reason.
Unprovoked.
They have to be. There has to be a reason for that dog to attack, for fear that someone's kicking in the door, screaming and shouting, "I'm going to come in and rape you or kill you," or setting the house on fire with gas. I mean, there's got to be a reason for that dog to attack. And then I wanted to ask the question to George and members here too. Does it go so far as to, because I've actually seen this happen. I'm not obviously mentioning names, but if you go over even to a friend's house and you go into that backyard and you have children and they happen to have a dog that's a great dog, but that dog is a dog that bites, and I know of a dog like this, and that dog turns on my little girl or somebody else's little girl or boy for that matter, and that doesn't necessarily maul them to where they're disfigured, but hurts them pretty bad because of the dog. Is that exempted or is that a violation?
Well, based on what we've done, I don't think that's an exemption. And the reason is the dog, unless the dog is somehow acting to protect its owner or its property.
That's the way I interpret it. And I think it goes to the fact that you've got to be a responsible owner of that animal, even if it's in your backyard. If your dog has propensity to bite unprovoked, you need to tell that child or that parent, be careful of my dog, don't go back there, because this dog will bite. And if they go back there and you warn them, then, I don't know. That's a different story. But I just wanted to make sure they were protected in those cases.
Well, Ms. Beeman said if she had lived within the city that it would have been different, and it might very well have been. I can tell you, though, that any situation with dogs in any governmental entity trying to deal with them is just, it's an ongoing, difficult problem to deal with, because these things do not usually happen with a bunch of witnesses. Even when there are a bunch of witnesses, dealing with animals, dealing with dogs in particular, is a emotional touchstone to so many people. I think we've done something reasonable here. I don't think this is perfect, but we've done something, and as I said at the Public Safety Committee, I think this is a good start. This is something, as I said, I think the Sheriff's Office can apply, and if they come back to us and tell us, well, it's not being effective in this way, then maybe we'll look at making some tweak to it. I would like to create something that's going to protect every situation that we're able to imagine, but I can't do that.
Well, the only thing this is going to do is help after the fact anyway.
That's right.
It's up to the property owners to use good judgment and train their pets right or get rid of them. And so, unfortunately, as I said, no matter how bad the situation is, this is really not going to help until afterwards. So I pray that your children never get mauled by a pet, because there's no ordinance that's going to prevent that.
There's not, but like you said, it prevents the afterwards.
Yes.
And in this particular case, that afterwards would have been 12 people.
Yes.
So it does make a difference what you're considering, and I appreciate that.
Is there anybody else wishing? Yes, sir.
I'm Mike Whited from Bentonville, and I applaud you for the detail that you're going through with this. I'm an active cyclist and a runner. My running is mostly on the wonderful trails we have here in Bentonville, and I really have only encountered one dog occurrence, and frankly, running over Slaughter Pen Road at night, I might have deserved that, but I was in the road, and my concern is there are some roads that every time I ride, I'm chased by dogs. And I just want to give you another perspective. I don't think I'm threatening when I ride by on my bike. I don't think a dog can determine whether I'm trying to do harm to that property owner when I'm out on a Saturday or Sunday riding my bike. But I've been chased over 200 or 300 yards down a road by a pair of aggressive beagles. I know that there is a yellow lab and a chocolate lab at the top of the hill that I can't do much about if I ride that route, because I'm climbing a hill I can't get away from. My last occurrence, which is why I came tonight to speak, was a half mile from my home. I live out off Plentywood Road. On Christmas Day, when I had a dog come out of a yard and start to chase me down the road. Fortunately, there was a car coming up behind me that got himself positioned between the dog and me, and I was able to get away. But if you think about a cyclist, our legs are down there fighting, height. And whether it's a nip or a bite, I just want to say that you don't have to break skin to have an encounter. I like the ride, but I'll ride out Vaughn Road, head out to Gentry and Decatur and grab it and come back. The bad part is you kind of get committed, because once I pass a certain point, I can't turn around because they know how fast I am then. And it's been very, very disconcerting. I've been riding for 10 years, ridden about 14,000 miles. We've lived in northwest Arkansas the last 5 years, and I've never encountered animals like I have here. We have a border collie, 70-pound border collie. When we moved to our property, we walked him along the edge of the property, and he won't leave the property. Dogs walk by, people walk by, he won't leave the property. But my frustration is there are many houses where I've had people sit on the porch when their dogs come off the porch after me and don't do a thing. I've had people out in their yard that have laughed at me when I've tried to get away when their dogs go after me. I don't know how this ordinance will address this, but it does go back to the point that it's the people, it's the owners of the pets. And unfortunately, it is an after-the-fact thing. But when I'm on a public road,
You should be correct. Yeah.
it should be safe. And I shouldn't be chased, 200 yards. That's a long way when you're going as fast as you can. And I've ordered mace to carry with me. It's a decision. Because if you're going to get away, you need to have both hands on the handlebars to put the force down to get away. If I'm reaching back to try to get that, I'm pretty much committed that we're going to have an encounter. So I applaud you for taking the time that you have to work through this ordinance and to think this through. There are a lot of us that have an active lifestyle that are out walking, running, riding, and it's kind of scary when something like this happens. So thank you for your time.
Anybody else wish to address this body? Are we ready to vote? Mr. Winscott.
I'd like to someone tell me what we're voting on after all this. I mean, I've listened to it for an hour.
Are you confused?
I am thoroughly confused.
What you're voting on is to send to the quorum court the ordinance as drafted with the currently underlined language in Article 2 deleted, and with subparagraph 2 of Article 3 changed to read, dogs acting to protect persons or the property of its owners, the private property of its owners.
Period.
Yes.
And this is a way it would go to the quorum court.
Yes, and I'll also change the second Article 3 to say Article 5.
That would just check it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, is everybody clear? Okay, all in favor of sending this to the quorum court, raise your hand. Opposed, like sign. Okay, other business? Oh wait, discussion for consideration of inclusion in the legislative package. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I do have to go.
Okay, thank you. Dan Douglas.
All right, this legislative committee's met several times. We've put stuff together in a packet here to give to our legislators.
Packet with the bills.
It's on the dashboard.
Is it on the dashboard?
Yeah. Legislative packet. Start there. Tell you what we're going to try to do. We want to try to get these approved by the Committee of 13 here so that we can give them to our legislators so that if there's any interim studies that need to be started, they can discuss it during the upcoming financial session. We'll go through these real quick, trying to expedite things. We'll go through each one of them one by one. If you have any objections, speak up then. Then when we get to the end, we'll just vote on the package as a whole that this is approved. So if you can't see something, speak up on it. And this won't go to the quorum court because this is just our package going to the legislatures. It has no official action of Committee 13 resolution. All right, this first one we've got here, we've got 5 of these that have bills. This is to allow an additional exemption from the county bidding requirements. George, you wrote this one. Want to expound on it a little bit?
This is actually the combination of two. We did this and then we came back and did it again. If you'll look on the back, there are two added exemptions to add to the competitive bidding requirements. The reason for number 22, that is an exemption that is commonly used by cities, and this just gives the authority for the county to execute the same thing that cities already do. Number 23 is something that is commonly used by school districts, so this just gives the county the same ability to do something that school districts do.
So only the underlying language is different than what the statute is, which is currently in force in state law.
That's correct. Any questions or objections on that one? If I hear no objections, we'll go on to the next one. Okay, the next one here is, pull it up here.
Emergency medical services.
Yes. This had to do with kind of like the vast situation, I believe, out there, George. Would you want to expound on it?
As with what we discussed on the last one, the added language is the underlined language, which is at the very bottom, D2. The reason for this is that it's as things stand currently, when Bass, well, not Bass, now it's Nevco, which was, they now handle the ambulance service that was Bass. They actually have to run all of their bills through the county. They have to, I believe the process is pay their bills, individual bills, send them up here to Richard, and then Richard has to reimburse them. This would allow, if the quorum court approves, if it would allow us to basically treat the vast part of NEVCO, which is the EMSD, the same way that volunteer fire departments are treated, which is to just distribute them their money as the tax collections come in and let them handle their own money.
Everybody understand that? Any questions or objections to that?
So what this says, if the state was to enact this or vote on this and approve this, still has to come back to the quorum court.
Yes.
The quorum court still has to approve.
Yes.
By doing it at the state level doesn't mean it's done. It just gives us the option.
Gives the county the authority to do it.
To do that. Okay.
And part of it, you've got to find that the cost of, and this is true, the cost of running the NEVCO ambulance service exceeds the amount that we're collecting. And you know that because NEVCO has to have fundraisers, and I think they seek grants and all sorts of things.
Any more questions or concerns on that? All right, the next one is an act to allow counties to recover costs related to remediating unsanitary conditions. This goes back to the nuisance ordinance, or whatever you want to call it. George,
this is the state law, although ours looks almost identical to that.
Yeah, but this is the state law. It's to amend it.
That's right. The addition here is to allow expenses incurred in doing this remediation to be added to the tax bills of the property owners. And it provides that it can't be done by the county absent a public hearing being held on it before the quorum court, which is going to, the property owners could come in and contest, and what I would presume it would be the environmental officers from the county could explain why we did what we did, and then the quorum court is actually the one who sets the amount, and then that amount could be collected as part of the tax bill.
As it currently stands, we can't collect unless the property sells or changes hands.
That's right, and if it never sells, then it never collects. Everybody understand?
It says that the quorum court sets the amount. How do we set the amount based on bills that we get from the sheriff or whatever?
Well,
Or the,
yeah.
Yeah.
The county will be asking for some amount, and the property owner can come in and contest that. I mentioned, and this is a theme somewhat, this is something that we do at the city. When we go out and we won't be mowing, which the city sometimes goes out and mows or has to clean up property. But if we do that, we notice up the owner, we have a hearing where they can appear at the city council, and we set the amounts, and those are added to their tax bills, and that's how we collect the money back.
it's added to the personal property tax bill, I guess.
Real estate.
Real estate tax bill.
Yes.
So if there's a mortgage on it, it's included in that.
It'd be included in the escrow.
I suppose that's probably true.
Any questions with that? Anybody got any problems with it? Concerns? Right. Moving on to the next one. This is basically let inmate labor work on for private or non-profit entities. Correct, George?
That's correct. It also changes the way it's currently set up. This is all run through the county court, which is the county judge. This shifts that over to be directly done by the sheriffs, which basically puts into effect the way things are actually done. I will tell you that there is a Representative Summers has sent me a bill that was drafted down by whoever does that down at the legislature, their helpers down there, which is a little bit different from this. So at some point, these will have to be melded together. But this is the thing that came through the legislative committee that the sheriff and the county judge were both involved in looking at.
I think that one's pretty self-explanatory there.
Wasn't there some question about nonprofits using county inmates?
Well, that's how all this came about, and this is to clarify that will be allowed.
Does the sheriff have any objection to the last deed as far as can he put a number?
His objection was that he wanted to do it semi-annually instead of quarterly, as I recall.
Yeah.
Monthly versus semi-annual. I think it's like.
Maybe we originally had it monthly and we switched
Yeah.
it. Okay, that's possible.
Now understand that this is the way it would be submitted to the legislative committees, and what comes out of those committees may be different than what you are holding or looking in your screen.
Well, and we'll also submit this to the AAC to start getting their input, and they may, I would assume they will send it out to the various county official organizations that are affected. So, I mean, there'll be a lot of people saying prayers over these.
Yeah. They'll get a lot of scrutiny. I'll kick around. All right, any questions on that or concerns? All right, moving on. The next one is basically allowing the county judge to have more authority to sell county property. George, you want to expound on this one a little bit?
The only change to the current state law is at the end, and the purpose of this really is every once in a while we'll get into a situation that doesn't make sense from the way of we're needing to deal with county property in some way. And I've always thought I can see where you would want to limit the judge, but frankly, if the quorum court approves it, home rule, we ought to be able to do what we want. So this allows the county judge to sell any item of property owned by the county so long as the quorum court has, by resolution, approved it. An example of that would be when we wrestled for years with the old American Legion, really old county jail.
Another example of that is whenever they tear out old whistles in the road department, they have to haul all these whistles from over the Siloam area back to Bentonville to the road yard until they collect them up to get the assessor to come out and appraise them and say that they have no value to where they can be sold, to haul them back over to the scrap yard at Siloam Springs again to sell them. You know, it's just ridiculous. Something
wrong with that?
Just the way we work. Okay, any questions or concerns on that? And remember that it would only be with the foreign court's approval and authority there. Okay, the last one on your miscellaneous there is other areas of concern. These are just some things. Some of them are from last year. First item being county road tax. You know, some of these we're not going to get. I promise.
Most of these.
But you don't know till you ask. That's what I was always told. County road taxes currently provides for a 50-50 split, except there are some entities that get 90%. And anybody got any questions on that?
Why do they get 90%? How'd that come about?
State law. They can.
They had a good lobbyist.
The municipal league.
Yep.
Special legislation.
You got every answer all wrapped up. It's all accurate.
It wasn't special legislation. I had the Supreme Court decide that was what we thought.
Yeah.
How many other cities besides Siloam, Bentonville, and Rogers are actually getting something like this?
Siloam, Benton, and Rogers.
No, there are other cities in other parts of the state that get similar disproportionate distributions. I don't know the number, but I know there are a number. I know there are several around the state.
There's several around, but I don't think they get the 90-10.
No, I think there's some of them 70%.
70
or 75.
I think is the most.
80-20.
But anyway, any questions or comments on that? Other than it's just not right the way it is now.
Well, yeah, I mean, we certainly need to pursue that.
Yeah.
It's just not right.
Keep it out there.
Okay, the next thing is acres here, putting just make it sustainable and providing a cap on how much they keep raising it on a budget of 1% each year here, so, and they need to figure out some way to come up with a retirement there.
So nothing specific on acres to present to them?
These are just areas of concern.
I know that. That's my point.
Mm-hmm.
It is a concern that we've all talked about during budget meetings, and shouldn't we have something specific to put forth? I guess that's your point bringing it up now is, do we?
Well, that way we can get with it's an issue, and we're saying we don't care what you do, just get it sustainable and quit raising the amount of matching that we've got to put in each year. You know, that's for them to decide how to do it, but just quit taking our...
Are you going to have a follow-up meeting like we did whenever it was 2 years ago with Washington County?
There'll be 74 other counties that would agree with that.
Yeah.
Are you going to have a meeting where we have all the state legislators, the state reps?
A little bit later on, we'll try to have a joint meeting with them. I want to get this to our county delegation here, Benton County delegation, before the financial session starts, to where they can start kicking some of this around. Next, amend the act creating the district court system to provide for the public defender to be provided and paid by the same entity as the prosecuting attorney. Well, that amount to, here a couple of years ago, we had to put another public defender on. We had to fund that when they changed from the municipal courts to the district courts. Thank you. Because before, the municipalities were paying for the prosecuting and the defense. Now, as the district, we have to pay for the public defender. You know,
they pulled a fast one on us. There was a swap, but we got the short end of the stick.
That's right. And the municipalities, this is saying that whatever entity, be it the City of Rogers or Bentonville or whatever, if they're the ones that are prosecuting it, and they're the ones that are going to get the fines and fees from it, they ought to be paying public defenders for it too.
I can't imagine why they would object to that.
No, I
can't. Maybe we can use this in our negotiation on the EMS.
There we go.
No, this is a separate thing. That's the way I was told they look at it. They don't look at fire and EMS the same thing, even though it comes out of the same building, the same people. Two different things.
Any questions or comments on that one? Okay, next. Now, I think that one.
That was resolved.
That was resolved. So that next one should be struck. That was resolved last year. Okay, next. The state should implement a step system, increase the rate of reimbursements to counties for holding state prisoners until the county's actual cost of housing inmates is recovered. Well, you know, we all know $28 a day in covering our cost here. They need to be paying more than that. They're not going to just raise it from 28 to 40 right away. So let's take $2 this year or $2 next year and start.
It wasn't enough when they enacted it, I think about 15 years ago. And it certainly isn't now.
Reason step systems in there is because you know they're not going to go from 28 to 40. So,
well, it's different in every county too. It's going to be hard for the state to come up with a number because ours, I would hope, is less than others because of the way we run our jail.
You bet.
Correct.
Our
cost for prison.
No, our cost. Oh, the cost.
Well, back under the previous administration, it was only like $1 or $2 a day.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Variable cost, fixed cost. You know, our fixed costs are probably more because we have nicer facilities.
Well, we don't include.
You got to include depreciation.
Well, that's what my tax one does.
Yeah. We just got to think the state telling us to include depreciation.
Shots are coming out.
Yeah. Shot across the bow.
Okay, any others on that one?
I would suggest you correct the word cost to cost instead of saying cast.
Yeah, I did not say that.
That probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
The cast of housing inmates, it's like they're escaping and you're trying to recover them.
All right, we'll take that under advisement. All right, next one, property taxes should be collected in the year of assessment instead of in arrears.
Oh, he did.
That would be
a constitutional amendment.
That's right, but
we don't have to go to them for that. You can go to the voters. There's two ways to go about that.
No. Everyone would be in favor of that.
Yeah. They're both hard to do.
Yeah. This would be the easier way of getting it done.
Actually, I don't think it would.
Either way, it's going to have to be statewide.
Yeah.
And it has to be a vote of the people.
Yeah.
But you got to start somewhere.
Because
we have 3/4 of the state legislature vote to amend the Constitution. In addition.
True. But by the same token, there's other really, really, really important things that they have to get on the top 3.
Well, I know.
And invariably, stuff that would help everybody is not one of them.
That was tactful.
Seems that way, doesn't it?
That was tactful. It's true.
I've seen this one go down at least twice before.
That's right.
But if we don't keep sending it, it never will get.
That's right. I think it should go.
And the last one, which is so near and dear to our heart.
Yeah.
Dan, I think you ought to add one more in there, and that is that in order to annex property, the majority of the people living in the annex area should be the ones to approve it.
Majority of both parties.
Well, that's one that we can still consider here, and
there was a time when it was that way, and they changed it.
Yeah, I thought it was that way.
The problem about collecting the taxes in the year that they're assessed is that you're going to have to throw a year out.
Yeah.
In order to do it.
But
That doesn't matter.
that year is never going to get here.
Just throw those millions away.
I sat down and calculated.
On paper, you have to get rid of that year, but you're still going to
All
collect.
you gotta do is tell people they got to
Don't
pay 2
ever-
years
the same.
up front.
And that's how you get it passed. Hey, we're going to forgive you 2012.
Depends on who you talk to.
You're right. Wait till we're going up, and then
All right, I'm trying to make this fast. Let's go, folks. All right.
we know you didn't want to do it fast.
The last one on here, election law reform should provide for no more than 2 special election days per year, one each spring and fall.
Is that the Bill Williams song?
He's already got He's already got Okay.
Well, one comment on that is I've always been opposed to school board elections being by themselves. I think that they need to be on the same day. However this is worded, however we go to our state legislators, I would like to see that the school board elections be on the same day that we get elected, or that the judge gets elected, or anybody else.
Same as general election.
When everybody's voting, I'd like to, because it's important. That's one of the most important positions that there is out there, is your school board.
Yes, especially your taxes.
And
They have as much authority as we do to raise your taxes.
How dare you want the public involved in the process?
Yeah, you want to put that on here?
I would.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of adding that on
And that
here?
goes with millages, too.
Anything really.
Not any special election.
Any special election.
Well, but you're allowed two.
Well, you're not talking about special elections, you're talking about the regular elections.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. To move school board elections to the same time as
But
the
that's
regular
But then any
general
millages could be during the 2 special election days.
That's right. I don't want the millages to be out there to where they can get 400 people to roll out and pass a millage.
That's right.
And your taxes go up for everybody.
Right.
That's right.
They typically have those
That's not the way it
elections
works, Tom.
when everybody goes on vacation in the summertime.
And they don't advertise it too much.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. If you know they're on the same day every year, you're more likely to vote. You know when election day is.
So if you're going to have your taxes.
Can't you just expand that to include school board elections? Twice a year, just add that to that parish? You don't have to add
Personally, I think if it's a tax, if they're asking for a millage increase, just make it that it has to be done at the time of a general election
Or primary.
or primary.
All elections has to be held twice a year. School board, millage.
But it
Well,
does
do you
not
want
stipulate that primary or general election.
You know what?
It simply says
What it should say is election law should provide for no more than 2 election days per year, one each in the spring and fall, not special.
I like that.
Yeah. I like it too.
What do you know?
Make a motion.
What he said.
You want to do that?
Yeah. I like that.
Yes.
Just 2 election days per year.
Right.
One spring, one fall. Primary and general. If it's not a primary general year, if it's off election year, it's the same day.
Same day.
Of course, with the exception which state statute allows, if the citizens want to petition
they can petition
to have an election, the citizens can do so.
Right.
But I don't want a school board or a quorum court or any body,
or a city
government
to
body.
annex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Except for citizen petition.
Well, there's also the case of replacing somebody that has either. I mean, there are cases where we would elect, like if a city councilman passed, in Bella Vista one just passed. I mean, there'd be a special election for that.
Well, typically the mayor can appoint, or the city council appoints. Who is it?
Well,
Yeah, that's what happens. Is
well, no.
I don't know,
Tom, somebody
the governor appoints. I got appointed.
We appoint the sheriff or county judge.
Every governmental entity is a little different.
Yeah.
And there was a newspaper article, I don't know if it was Tom or one of his compatriots wrote it, a very interesting little thing. JD died on the 30th or the 31st. If the term that is being filled is more than a year, it goes to a special election. If it's less than a year, it's done by appointment of the city council members. And the question is, which one is it? Don't know. So it's not always the same, I guess is what I'm saying.
There are special cases. It really is about school boards and villages. And the with exemptions for those types of things. I don't know.
Annexations.
Yeah.
Of course, the thing is, if you put the annexation that you're talking about at the general, it would be more likely to pass than in a special election.
I know.
Unless we get the other one changed.
Yeah, we get it changed. Hopefully we can get that changed.
Contingent upon the other item.
Yeah.
All of that's gonna go down before we can get this.
Well, yeah. But
Are we ready to go home yet?
There's always
No more than 2 elections per year.
Right.
That's what everybody wants?
Yeah.
Except for the citizens process.
We can add that in.
Yeah. Citizen petitions.
All right. All right.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Can we somehow or another get notification when these come before committee and are discussed so that we can have representation down there?
Well, you can pay. You can monitor it.
Yeah.
You can talk to our
You go on the
legislators.
website.
Dan will talk to
Yeah. But first of all, we gotta have somebody carry the bill and sponsor it.
And then sometimes you won't have much notice. It just depends on how everything's progressing.
It's
You've got to monitor about 50 committees.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Well, if it's not more than 45.
But if we can get it split up, different legislators to carry different ones, then they can notify us if they know for sure when it's going to come up.
Question with
But they
cover
don't
letter that
always
they
know.
notify us when they think this is going to be coming up.
Yeah, but sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll hear of
Moving right along.
Okay. Let's get back to this and wrap it up on this. Any objections to any of the titles we've got in there? All in favor of accepting what we've covered here as our legislative packet to present at this time, signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Motion carries.
Where do we go from here now?
Home.
Well, I mean, with this.
11, 12, and 13 are all together.
Going to get it all together and present to our legislators. They're going down the 13th. I've just got to poll them and see when we can get most of them together. It's been indicated most of them a day meeting would be better. Probably have a meet up here and we'll go over it. We'll let everybody know when it's going to be.
Okay.
You want to come and go?
That's because they're not used to meeting at night anymore. They're a big time.
I know. But anyways.
Any other business to come before this committee? Announcements.
Finance meeting February 7th, 5:30.
Any other committee meetings that you know of?
Public Safety Committee, February the 9th at 5:30.
And any others that come up, we can announce at the proper time.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Thank you.